Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Welcome to the show. Alex Phillips here with you until 7 o'clock, accompanying you whatever you're doing between now and then. If you're driving home, please be safe. The roads could be a little bit swervy and sticky and gluey and altogether not very nice. And if you're in the West Country, perhaps you'll need to build an ark. I don't know. It seems to be a lot underwater from what I could tell this morning in my parts. So wherever you are, I hope that you have a lovely evening lined up. And I'm going to do my best to keep you company, keep you informed and keep you entertained over the course of the next 3 hours. It's a privilege to have your company. And what would really make this Sado happy would be to hear from some of you. That'd be nice. All right, keep a girl company. I'm in this studio by myself, you know. It's not like I can, you know, have a laugh. So you've got to help me. Sharing is caring. 03444991000 is the number to dial if you'd like to be patched through to the studio. The brilliant Kieran is ready to take down your details. 03444991000 is also, as it happens, our number for WhatsApping as well. And you can leave me a voice note on WhatsApp as well as a written message. Don't bother sending photos, because I can't see them on this screen. It will be a waste. Everything's your normal network rate, by the way. So in terms of money, we're not costing you anything. Unlike Rachel Reeves. 8722 is the number if you'd like to send a text message. If you're going to do that, you know the score by now. You've got to write the word talk before you write your message, and that's the way it finds its way into this particular studio, because seriously, HR will come after me if they get your messages in Virgin, because they probably won't agree with them. Just saying. Okay, right. Shall we get on with getting on? We're joined by the fantastic Benedict Spence. You all know him by now. Conservative commentator is his job title. Benedict, how are you, my darling?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm well. How are you doing?
Great, very, very festive greeting there, Benedict. Right, I'm all right. I don't know. I feel very wintry. I think I've got that sad thing. I think I need one of those magic lamps that you sort of, you know. Do you know the things I mean?
That's just the economy. That's everybody. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know.
We're all in the same boat.
Oh, so we all have to get together and look after each other. Oh.
Exactly.
Okay, right, let's talk about looking after your mates, huh? What about these peerages? I mean, it is absolutely deplorable, isn't it? So Keir Starmer was talking about the need to reform the Lords. Well, reform it he has, hasn't he? He's basically getting rid of as many Conservative peers as he can by scrapping the hereditary peers, which of course kind of looks like a good thing to do on the outside. Why should you get a position in politics just because you're born into a certain family? But technically, this is about him making sure that for the rest of his tenure, every single bill that he wants to sail through both houses will do. And what I find the most remarkable is he's given himself a total of 25. Badenoch, however, gets a paltry 3. The Liberal Democrats somehow get 5. I don't know why or how. Oh, yeah, more leftists. That would be why. And Reform, how many do you think they've got? Oh, that's right. None. So what do you make of this peerages list?
I'm going to be honest. Actually, I'm going to be perhaps a little bit controversial. I think if we're not going to reform the House of Lords, I think we might as well just keep hereditary peers. I mean, actually, what's the difference between somebody who has a long-standing connection to the area that they live in and has a long-standing vested interest in the preservation of the area that they live in compared to somebody's political mate? Actually, I'd argue that having hereditary peers was better than the current system that we have. You know, that I think is part of the idiocy about what it is that we've ended up with. We were promised and have been promised for a very long time House of Lords reform, and what we've been given is something demonstrably worse. This is nothing new, though, is it? I mean, the cronyism of the government of the day just packing the House of Lords with people that they just happen to like, people who most of us have never heard of, that have achieved nothing of note in life beyond the fact that they appear to have worked for a political party or are mates of the Prime Minister, which I think most of us would say, again, would sit there and go, I'm not sure that is better than a hereditary peer.
Exactly. It's like the sort of thing the Chinese Communist Party do. I'm with you entirely. It's just a joke now, the House of... How many members are there? How many peers are there? Because they just keep throwing more and more into the mix, and not many seem to shuffle off their mortal coil, because once you're made a peer, that's it for life.
there's hundreds of them, and the worst thing is, of course, there are hundreds that simply don't turn up, that don't really have any role, aren't really particularly interested. It's used as a sort of a reward for saying, well, congratulations on a life in politics well lived, now here is your gong. And I think what is equally irritating, actually, though, is the suggestion, A, that what Keir Starmer is currently doing is essential because the Lords are doing their job. Because, you know, this is the funny thing, they do actually have a job, which is to scrutinise legislation that comes through the Commons to make sure that it isn't all a stitch-up. The House of Lords is currently doing that, to which, of course, the response from the government is, well, this is outrageous. You can't possibly scrutinise our legislation, so we're just going to put even more of our allies in. At which point, again, you're sat there going, I'm sorry, how is this better? But equally, the only other suggestion that we ever get is that House of Lords reform would lead to an elected chamber. At which point you're sat there going, well, why would it be any different to the House of Commons? Why bother having an upper chamber at all? And you can see what the argument would then be, which is, yeah, let's not have an upper chamber. Let's get rid of it. That's not what we need. We do need a House of Lords that is separate from any of the major political parties. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, you pointed out the reform aren't going to get anybody. I mean, actually, if I were reform, I'd be sat there going, yes, fair enough. We shouldn't, because it should be beyond party politics. I think that would be critical thing for reform, actually, to be the ones to champion House of Lords reform, clues in the name, by saying we would take it entirely out of the political spectrum and we'd find a way, and, you know, it would take a lot of hard work, but making it a body that was more reflective of, when I say reflective, I don't mean in terms of ethnic makeup or anything like that. I mean more reflective of the
I kind of feel like you shouldn't be able to be in the House of Lords if you've worked for a political party or given them money.
I think that would be a great start, actually.
Yeah.
I think as a sort of a barometer, if you've ever shown any sort of affiliation to a political party beyond simply voting for them, I think actually it's a pretty good way of saying you don't really have a role to play here. And as much as anything else, House of Lords, I also think, shouldn't be for life. I think it should be term limited. And I think you'd get a better cross-section of society. You get more people who have worked in industry, more prepared to step away from their industry for a few years to say, I'll give 5 years of my life to actually helping this country. Because actually beyond that, then it just becomes a bit of a slog. And as you say, it's almost a retirement party for people.
No, it is. There's a lot that needs to be done to get that blimmin' place sorted out. Let's talk about this. David Lammy has proposed that he wishes to erase childhood criminal records for thousands of people, basically saying that it's blighting future job prospects. Ironic, that, isn't it? From the party who wants to persecute Nigel Farage for what he said in the playground. I mean, you couldn't make it up when it comes to the hypocrisy. But by and large, my personal opinion on this is I actually support this. Unless, of course, you know, the characters in question are sort of child killers, you know, murderers, the rest of it. But I'm a believer that, you know, some people do ridiculous things in their childhood and their wayward teens, but then they turn out to be brilliant members of society much later in life. And I think that it would be a shame if you've done something. Apparently this is relating to people who might have nicked a bicycle once upon a time when they were kids and are now 60 years old and are finding they're not allowed to do X, Y and Z because of it. And do you know what? I think I'm going mad. I keep finding things to agree with the Labour Party, and especially David Blimmin Lammy. Lord help me, I need my temperature taken.
I mean, I disagree. This is the thing. I actually think that it would be a mistake to simply wipe this off and not take it into account, because actually an awful lot of adult criminality starts in childhood. Actually, there's always telltale signs there, very often, and it's very often related, frankly. If people tend to be prolific shoplifters when they're adults, they tended to have shoplifted when they were children, they tended to have stolen when they were children. If they turn out to be very violent later in life, very often they tended to be violent as well in childhood as well. It's not always correlated, but there is enough of a pattern for me to go, actually, it would be foolish for us to simply disregard these things, because you know exactly what would happen. They'd say, well, the record has been expunged, so it can't be revealed, you know, as evidence. It can't be taken into account by police when they're trying to sort of, you know,
what if there was a significant amount of time, you know, that someone did something when they were 15 and they haven't done anything since until they're 50?
I think it depends very much on the nature of what it is. If we are talking about stealing sweets, obviously that's something that you can go, come on, that's not likely. But if it's, I mean, this is the thing, and I know we don't like to talk about these sorts of things, but children these days increasingly are committing all kinds of offences that, if you know, on much larger levels, relating to sexual offences, relating to violence.
Well, that's the thing. Violent offences, sexual offences, I'm sorry, but those things cannot simply be expunged, because that to me really shows something that is clearly badly wired in your temperament and your personality. If you've been able to stab somebody, rape somebody, you're a wrong 'un. done. But
also,
I don't know, I think there are plenty of teens who do naughty things and they can become perfectly decent adults.
Yeah, I agree that obviously there are lots of people for whom they fall into that category, but actually I think what would be far better would be for youth offender services basically to be a lot more stringent than they currently are. I think people don't get put away for long enough when they're children. We understand why that is, because you don't want to interrupt their learning process, their growing process, so they do often tend to get quite shorter sentences. But also, I don't think that we put anything like the amount of resources that perhaps we should into rehabilitation. Partly that's because they're not detained long enough, and this is the same as the adult population as well. If you're not going to put somebody away for 10 years, they're going to go away for 2.5. You're actually reducing the amount of time that you can try to get through to them. And I think that this is something that needs to be borne in mind. Lots of children who go on to have criminal lives because they were criminals in childhood could, I think, be helped if we were more prepared to be a little firmer when they were younger.
Yes, I agree with you. A sort of tougher intervention rather than, you know, come by our place and foosball and, you know, it's not your fault. Right, I think we all need cheering up, don't we? I feel really blue today, and so this story has pleased me so much. We're just going to whack something on the screen for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening, I'll describe what you're seeing. Here we go. Have a look at this. Oh, no time like the present. We'll dig that up from the archive somewhere. We have a picture of it at some point somewhere. I don't know where. But if you could see the picture, if the picture existed and hadn't been eaten by the robots in the gallery, what you would see is a nativity scene in Italy. And in the middle of it, you've got a 38-year-old Ghanaian who kind of looks a bit like, I don't know, a sort of... a backing dancer for Michael Jackson's Thriller video, because he's on the run, right? He'd been sentenced to 9 months and 15 days in prison by a court in Bologna. He managed to evade the authorities and ended up in a tiny town called Gallatone, which is in Puglia. And the police are closing in on him. His ruse was rumbled when the mayor, who walked by, noticed a flicker of movement in the festive tableau. Pride of place in the town in the Piazza Crocifisso. And there he is, like literally to the right of Mary and Joseph, who are by the crib, and he's there amongst the bales of straw, kind of doing this sort of like, I don't know, like a weird sort of zombie pose. It's a shame we don't have that picture because it is a thing of beauty. Have you seen it, Benedict?
I've not, but do you know what? If he's made it all the way from Bologna to Apulia and nobody's actually clocked him, that's quite impressive, to be honest. That's a hell of a distance. And if he's just doing this strange sort of, I don't know, charades the whole way through to try and blend in, that is actually kind of funny. I mean, yeah, I don't know what he must have done to have been in prison for 9 months in Bologna.
Assault. I think he assaulted someone, got a bit of fisticuffs or something.
It must have been quite the brawl to have been actually imprisoned in Bologna, is all that I'd say. So, but, you know, perhaps we shouldn't be laughing quite so much, but nonetheless, I mean, there is an element of hilarity that obviously he's managed to get from A to B. The distance, I think, almost about the length of the United Kingdom, and nobody's clocked him until they see him in a nativity scene.
I love the fact that, you know, what point does he realise they're closing in on him and he sees the nativity scene and he just jumps into it and sort of pretends to be one of those living statues. It's amazing. Anyway,
like
Benedict.
It is like something out of a cartoon where somebody just blends into the background and the cops run past.
It doesn't really blend in, if I'm honest. It's a sort of traditional-looking nativity scene, although the 3 wise men were from all over the shop, so perhaps he could be one of those. Benedict, it's been wonderful catching up with you, my darling. Thank you ever so much. OK, we're going to take a short break now. Sorry we didn't manage to get that picture for you, but I'm sure you can Google it yourself. It is a joy. OK, right, if you want to make any comments on anything we've been talking about, 03444 991 on WhatsApp. That is the number to dial if you want to have a chit-chat on the blower. 87222 is the number to text. Write the word talk before you message. A couple of your messages before we go to break. Thank you, Betty. She says, we are all here. Who are all of you? But I'm glad you are all here. Looking great. The country life suits you. Happy Thursday to all. Well, someone's put something interesting on Betty's Weetabix. She seems to be in a joyful mood, unlike the rest of the country. But thank you. I do like a positive message. How about reforming the House of Lords to a second chamber of representation based upon how the election percentages were? Therefore, it's renewed every election and acts as a barometer for the public feeling while the government retains power. Anything not in the manifesto can be challenged. Now, I get what you're saying, but the thing is, if it was just basically based upon what you'd have in the government, there would be no scrutiny. you know, because it just, oh, Labour's got a big majority in the Lords, bam, bam. You know, anything that they decide to just trammel through, no one's there as a check and balance to stop that from happening. I don't really know what we need to do. Do we want it directly elected? I just kind of feel like, oh, here we go again, more elections. There's got to be a good way. So answers on a postcard, please, if you've got a good idea about what we need to do about that House of Lords. Mark in Coventry says, following on from yesterday, that's right, I was asking you to name your ideal peer yesterday. Keep those thoughts coming in, by the way. Mark in Coventry wants Benedict in the House of Lords, especially when he's got his tash. I think he'd quite suit those green benches. And Steve says, expunge childhood records. On the face of it, sounds quite magnanimous. However, anything after 16 years should not. For people joining the forces or police and the like, they should know who they are recruiting. Also, is this a backdoor way of keeping illegals? I agree. Post 16, you're old enough, aren't you? And well, I know, seems to be a lot of young men from certain countries who have found themselves tangled up in the law lately. And why should youth criminal records be expunged when the police use non-crime hate incidents to see if people are heading for crime? Surely these two are not compatible, says Margaret. OK, there we go. Your thoughts, please. 03444991000, number to dial if you want to chat, number to message if you want to WhatsApp, number to use if you want to leave me a voice note. 87222, however, is the old school way of getting in touch via SMS. Right, talk before you text. Taking a little respose now, and then after that, I'll be right back. See you in a moment.
Everybody feels that even if you don't like a parent, but when they've had such a terrible thing, he's nearly died, he's had most of his leg taken away, you can go back and say, look, let's start again, let's be kind, I'm so sorry about this, why don't I show you the pictures of the children? There's loads of things that you can do, but I think that people feel that she's got no right to do nothing, especially he doesn't seem to have done anything wrong.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Ooh, it's the most wonderful time of the year, isn't it? And what can we look forward to? A bit of tinsel, presents, binge drinking, eating too much turkey, especially a sort of random, semi-dry, not particularly interesting form of poultry, which we only tend to eat once a year, unless you're one of those people who exists on protein shakes and going to the gym. Does anyone else eat turkey? I don't know. But what the other thing we can guarantee at this time of year is seasonal bugs, the flu, not enough beds in hospital, the winter shortages. When Mrs. Miggins falls off her stepladder trying to put the star on the top of her Christmas tree, she's going to be in trouble, because it seems as though West Streeting's last-minute attempt to prevent the doctor strike, which is due to take place for 5 days on Wednesday, well, it's kind of been rumbled. They haven't said that they're not going to call off the strikes. They are considering this improved offer from Wes Streeting, which doesn't involve getting more money, because they've already had around a 30% pay rise. Instead, they're going to make more skilled posts available, make sure that junior doctors don't have to pay for their own exams. I think that all seems very reasonable, but oh no, BMA, reasonable? Often not found in the same sentence. Let's speak to Roy Lilly, former NHS Trust chairman. Roy, I mean, what do you make of this? The BMA are constantly dangling the sword of Damocles over the Health Secretary's head. I think he's done the right thing by saying no more money. I don't think we can really afford it. But the thing is, they're messing about with lives, aren't they? We know we're about to be hit with superflu, and in fact, we're in the midst of it.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, on the bed thing that you just mentioned, I'll talk about the junior doctors in a minute, but on the bed thing, across Europe, the average number of beds per 1,000 head of population is 5.5, and we have 2.5. So, you know, we're under-bedded for a modern healthcare system. That's part of the problem, and that's investment from government and capital. As far as the doctors are concerned, well, look, they went on strike because they wanted more pay. This deal that's on the table doesn't mention pay. Now, they're going to put it to their members to see what they think. But my guess is, you know, the BMA isn't the old gentleman's dining club it was years ago. This is a very radical left-wing union now. They're very militant. I think it's in the balance. If I was going to put money on it, I'd say that they won't accept it and they'll continue striking.
Does everyone in the BMA support it, though? Because in times past, a lot of BMA members have said, actually, we don't agree with what the leadership are saying.
Yeah. And, you know, that might be the case now. And, of course, not all resident doctors belong to the BMA. So, I mean, there's still wriggle room, and there are still people who are working even through the strikes. But, you know, this hardcore of people who have called the doctors out on strike. I mean, there was a time when it was just inconceivable that anyone working in the NHS would go on strike. Yeah. The nurses went on strike. I remember, you know, coming on this program and talking about nurses. You know, will nurses ever go on strike? And I said, no, you know, I can't imagine it. Absolutely not. But they did. And then the junior doctors, as they were then, followed in. And then we had rumblings from others of the professions in the NHS. I mean, we're dealing with a very different breed of people. There was a time when you became a doctor and had a job for life. Now they're saying, well, we want a job, but we want a life as well. And that's part of the things that Streeting's tried to offer them, which I think they've got a fair case, actually, for they are treated pretty badly in the way that they're trained and shipped around the country. It just destroys your home life. So I absolutely get that. But as far as the money is concerned, Alex, you're right. I mean, we all know that the economy is in a total mess, and so do the junior doctors. And we all know this will do damage, and so do the junior doctors.
Do you think it needs to be a situation where, obviously this will never happen under the Labour government, one assumes, but do you think we need to bring in a ban on certain medical professions going on strike, as we do with the police, as we do with the armed forces? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the police and the armed forces, the nation's security depends upon them being present, not mutinying in a sense. But when it comes to medical professionals, knowing how under pressure the NHS is anyway, that people's lives are in the balance here. This isn't just a case of, you know, baggage handlers at Heathrow and flights being disrupted. This is people who, you know, frankly, if there are long waits at A&E, if they're people who can't be dispatched from ambulances in for critical treatment, people could end up losing their life because of this.
Yes. The difficulty with that, Alex, is if you ban doctors from striking, then you'd have to ban the nurses as well. And if you ban the nurses, you've got to ban the radiographers, because otherwise, you wouldn't get any scans done, and that would bring A&E to a grinding halt. I mean, the trouble is, the NHS is a real kind of team game, and everybody plays a part. But there are a lot of people now are getting fed up with a highly unionised workforce. And I think if they do that, they'll have to give them sort of something in return, a bit rather like the police officers and the prison services have a better beefed up pay review body. So you could do it. It would take, of course, legislation and have to be consultation. I wouldn't put it past Streeting doing it.
Really?
I watched him in the House of Commons last night. I mean, look, he's trying to deal with a very difficult set of circumstances. And the one thing you always learn about negotiating to win is you don't stand there and slag off the people you're trying to negotiate with. But that was exactly what he did last night. I think he kind of lost his rag, really, and said the junior doctors are pouring petrol on the NHS and they're throwing in a match. And I mean, he got very graphic. He slagged them off in the other parts of the press as well. I think he's at the end of his tether. My advice to him will be to step back and go to ACAS and let them try and sort it out. He needs to absent himself from the front line of this, because I just think he loses his temper.
Although there is sort of, talks of some of the unions wanting to divorce from the Labour Party, which could be curtains to Sir Keir Starmer, and I wonder who might have an eye on that job. You never know.
There's a lot to play for there.
A lot to play for there. Now, I've got to be careful how I phrase the next topic, because everyone liked a good debate over a mask during COVID. And the Tories are now accusing Nigel Farage of hypocrisy, because he said he never wore a mask during the COVID pandemic. He said he wouldn't wear them again. And somebody at CCHQ have dug out pictures of, that's right, Nigel Farage wearing a mask. I mean, here we go again. There's been sort of suggestions that you should stick a mask on if you're worried about getting flu, or if you have the flu, or if you just like wearing a mask. I'm fed up with it. But I just think live and let live, let people decide. If you want to wear a blimmin' mask, go ahead and be my guest. If you don't. My advice would be, if you've got symptoms, don't go to work. It drives me mad when someone comes in coughing and snibbling like the noble warrior. Look at me, I'm really poorly and I've still dragged my, carcass into the office. Well, great, thanks. Now you're going to take out about 10 of your colleagues. That's my view. Just stay at home if you're not well.
Yeah, I think that's right. And this particular strain of flu is very virulent, as we know. It's an HN2H3, which is a variant of the one we thought we were going to have, and it is much more virulent. Look, as far as masks are concerned, I think the Farage thing is just everybody piles in on Farage, don't they? Whatever they can find. When he said something injudicious at school, and now they've found some old picture of him wearing a mask. If we just park that as sort of political knockabout, and it's good for the front pages. But as far as masks are concerned, well, I have to tell you, I come clean here. I do wear a mask, and I tell you why. Because I had cancer last year, as I think I told you previously, and so my immune system is a bit compromised still. Yeah. So I wear a mask on the tube. Also, as you can probably hear in my beautiful dark brown voice this afternoon, darling, that I'm struggling with the early stages of probably man flu or a cold or what have you. I'm heroically not going out because I don't want to spread it around either. Look, we just have to be grown up and sensible, don't we? We all know. We've learned the lessons of COVID. If one person's got some bug in a room and it will spread around and give it to everybody. And we know all that, how that works. We all became amateur epidemiologists. Nobody could spell it, but we all knew what it was. And now we just use a bit of common sense. That's, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, no, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Like I said, if people want to wear a mask, crack on. I actually feel I can't do it. I tried, had to during COVID, didn't you? And in the end, I had to get one of those flower power lanyards because, I don't know, first of all, having something around my face, it just, oh my God, it makes me feel like I'm going to have a panic attack. But also I get really bad eczema on my face, and sort of sitting over mask on, I looked like I had a little sort of like red raw goatee beard for most of the pandemic. And in the end, I was just like, I'm not doing this. A mixture of looking like, red raw goatee beard, Barbarossa, while having a panic attack. I just thought, nah, I'm not doing this. I'd already had COVID. I'd survived it. I was like, not for me. Thank you very much. But that's the thing. It's each to their own, really. Everybody knows, I believe, what is best for them. We can all use our common sense.
Kids are super spreaders. They're, coming home from school. And if you've got elderly parents and you're working, you have to be careful. You know, you don't bring something home, an extra Christmas present home for your granny that she doesn't really want. So we use a bit of common sense, open the windows, get some fresh air in, have a happy Christmas.
And wash your hands. If I could have kept one thing alive and well from COVID, it would be the hand gel.
Yeah.
I loved that stuff. I loved that you had to put it on before you went into the supermarket. Now it's back to, oh, you really want to take that piece of bread out of the bakery that 15 people have poured with their gross fingers? I loved that alcohol hand gel. Long may it live. Roy, thank you ever so much. The brilliant Roy Lilly, former NHS Trust Chairman. I know that that's going to have triggered a load of people. The COVID debates never died, did they? You're there readily typing away about your thoughts on masks and hand gels. But here's a weird thing. As someone who is eczema-y, the hand gels don't affect my skin. Soap, bad. Perfume, bad. Whack a load of alcohol, you know, pure ethanol on. Oh, that works. And I loved it. And I just, you know, whenever you see people now in the shop, you know, squeezing all the different bits of fruit, deciding which one they want, I'm just like, ew, where have your hands been? I kind of think it makes sense for everyone to keep their hands clean because, you know, we all do it, don't we? When there's a visitor to your house or if you're in the toilets at work and someone comes out the cubicle and you just notice they go straight out the door and you're like, got you spotted. Because look, there are loads of people out there who don't wash their hands. Fact. And probably we should wash them a little bit more, especially when handling food. Crying out loud, if you worked in a restaurant and you were just like, yeah, touching all the edibles with your manky fingers, people would be having kittens over that. But go down the local supermarket, yeah, you just grope as much food with your fetid paws as you like. Sorry, bit of a tangent there. Surely you have something to say about that. 03444991000 on WhatsApp, voice notes as well. 87222 is a message to text. Like talk before you text. We're going to have a little break now. And after that, we're going to be grilling the brilliant Sebastian Zalek, who is a Labour councillor, on all things left. Wish him luck. He's coming up after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back and welcome onto HMS Common Sense, Sebastian Zalek. Hi, Sebastian. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you? You look very Christmassy.
I know, look, I've got my trees up, it's snowing, it's sort of like, yeah, woohoo. But apparently I look like something mixed between a cat burglar, a French person and a football referee. In fact, I look so much like a football referee that Ian Collins, producer, made me a little red card. So good luck. I might wave this at you if I don't think your answers pass muster. OK, let's first of all talk about this attempt to reform the ECHR. So Keir Starmer, part of a march from 27 signatories to the European Convention of Human Rights, saying, can we start to change the way it's written in order that it doesn't end up being something used by migrants to prevent deportation? On the surface of this, you think, ooh, OK, good idea. We know the ECHR is a problem. Multiple other countries are finding it a problem. When something's not fit for purpose, then, you know, you've got to fix it. But the problem is, for anything in the ECHR to change, all 46 member states have to agree, not just the 27 that signed the statement.
Yes, that's quite right. I think this is very different, though, to the EU. I mean, I think that's the most obvious comparison to make, isn't it? When Cameron went to Brussels, he got those concessions, he brought them back, and it still wasn't enough for the British people. They still wanted to leave Europe, and in the end, we did. Now, this is different because, as you say, this is an issue that affects many other countries. France and Germany take more asylum seekers than we do. Many other countries, Denmark, have tackled this problem domestically. So there is more of an incentive, I think, for other countries to get involved, to play ball and to come to some sort of an agreement. Now, look, that's going to take time. We know how politics works in Europe. It takes a lot of effort to get to any kind of a consensus, but you've got to have a go, haven't you? I think the way to go about it is to have a very precise way of finding these solutions rather than ripping the whole thing up, which I think would be maybe a slightly clumsier approach to solving a more localised problem. I
mean, the difficulty is here, right? And Sir Keir Starmer is a human rights lawyer. He knows this. He knows that there's a big difference. I mean, France doesn't care whether the ECHR is reformed. They ain't going to sign it. I'll tell you why. Because in the French constitution, nothing can supersede the highest authority of the land, which is the French state itself. However, we don't have a constitution, and we've ended up in a tricky situation of the ECHR sitting at the very top of the pile. And Sir Keir Starmer must understand that as a human rights lawyer. He should also understand that countries like France have a Gallic interpretation of the law. It's sort of like a buff, you know, maybe not. Whereas we have a very Anglo-Saxon approach to common law, which is actually analysing every single dot, every single dash, every comma for the exact meaning. And so we often end up, unlike other signatories of the ECHR, having to take it fully, or, you know, our interpretations of it often aren't in the national interest, whereas other countries kind of get away with ignoring it.
I don't think that's quite right. It's not fair to say that we don't have a constitution. We don't have a codified constitution. Right. It's not in one book, but it exists across multiple sources. You've got statute, you've got case law, you've got conventions, you've got all sorts. And we have the principle of parliamentary sovereignty, which means that Parliament is the end of the line. They are the people who can make and break laws. France has a similar thing, but also they're a member of the EU, so they have to.
But when it comes to legal judgments, it is very much last chance saloon, the ECHR, and the ECHR has overridden Parliament. We know this. We know this when that plane was supposed to be taken off for Rwanda, and some sort of judge sitting in a bar in Strasbourg having his glass of port made a phone call and said, that plane ain't taking off. So, you know, it's all very well saying Parliament is sovereign. Turns out, no, if a judge in the ECHR doesn't want Parliament to do something, guess what? They can flex their muscles.
Well, they can, because we've given them that power and we can take it away again. It would be perfectly legal to leave the ECHR if we wanted to do that. I would suggest it wouldn't be a very good idea. We have those laws in domestic law as well through the Human Rights Act. All that is a way of...
OK, if we have those laws in the Human Rights Act, why do we therefore need the ECHR? Why can't we just leave it? Because, like I said, the problem is, you know, tweaking a few technicalities isn't going to stop or isn't going to really prevent the situation that we have right now, where judges in Strasbourg can overrule our Supreme Court and they can overrule Parliament.
Well, the thing is, they very rarely do. There aren't very many examples of them sticking their oar into domestic politics. I think what's important to recognise with human rights is that they are universal. They are so sacrosanct. I'm a real believer in that, and I know many others are as well. And for that reason, you don't want to go making your own version of that. Now, look, there is an extent to which they're open to interpretation. Human rights laws are intentionally quite broad, and they often rub up against each other, and often judges are trying to balance them and work out which one should come out in each situation. But I think that's why it's so important that we look at changing the guidance, giving slightly different instructions to judges rather than saying, we're taking all this away. Are you not going to have that body of legislation to fall back on?
Sebastian, I think you've got a rather rose-tinted view of this ECHR, and it doesn't often flex its muscles, because I can remember from the deportation of terrorists under Theresa May, she wanted to get rid of it. This debate has been rumbling on for well over a decade. I remember when Theresa May was Home Secretary under David Cameron, she was saying that she wanted to get rid of the ECHR and have a British Bill of Rights because we weren't able to send off various terrorists for trials in their home countries, etc. So the ECHR has a track record of being a bit of a barricade to parliamentary sovereignty. And do you not trust the British people or British politicians to be able to come up with decent human rights? What do you think is going to happen if we left the ECHR?
Well, look, I think we've got decent human rights already. I would throw the question back at you and ask, what would you change? Which human right would you get rid of?
I'd get rid of the whole Human Rights Act.
And have what instead?
Criminal law.
You just wouldn't have any human rights?
No, I'd get rid of the whole Human Rights Act. I seriously would. Great repeal bill. I'd get rid of a lot of it. Because actually, there's enough you can do in criminal law. Frankly speaking, the rest of it I just think is mumbo jumbo and tends to be used for the wrong reasons.
If that's the case, why is there a general legal consensus that human rights are a good thing?
Well, most lawyers are not going to want to get rid of their work, are they? Especially if you're a human rights lawyer, you're not going to be like, do you know what would be great? That's like me turning around going, let's get rid of radio stations. I mean, why would I do that?
That's not true at all. Quite often those human rights laws are working against those lawyers. It's not always in their side, but it's a certain paradigm that we subscribe to because we believe
I know plenty of lawyers on the sort of right-wing side of the debate who would actually happily see the Human Rights Act abolished and leave the ECHR. It's one of those political things, I think, frankly speaking, that you're either minded to simplify the law into codified criminal law, or you want to have all these add-ons, which tends to be if you're more on the left wing of politics. But, let's just ask one final question about this before we move on, which is, is this going to work?
We don't know. We can't see the future, but do you know what? It is worth a shot. And what I think quite annoys me, I saw the piece that Jenrick wrote in the Telegraph. He was talking it down before it even started. And I'm not just saying this because he's a Tory and because I'm Labour. I just think any time anyone comes out and says, that's not going to work, it's so silly because you don't know. You don't know what the future has in store. You don't know what those negotiations are going to look like. So what I would say, as I would say to any government of any colour, give them a chance to see what they come back with. We did that with Cameron. Again, not my political bedfellow, but he managed to come back with some concessions, didn't he? Which was pretty unusual within the scope of the EU.
Yeah, I remember those poxy concessions. Let's talk now about a very serious subject. These two, to me, are distinctly interrelated. Another day, another story of a so-called asylum seeker who's been charged with abducting and raping a 15-year-old girl while living in a migrant hotel, a Sri Lankan called Yashin Himasara, accused of beating and strangling a little girl. Carried her away against her will in Feltham in West London on November the 1st. He'd been living at the 3-star St Giles Hotel. Again, yet again, on it goes. And I said for a long time, you cannot bring in men from countries who do not have the same attitudes towards women that we do. You just cannot, without risking the safety, the sanctity of our daughters, our sisters. It's not okay. And I've said this repeatedly. People might not like to hear this, but there will be, among the cohort of young men coming over on the boat, there will be some who are attracted to coming to the West because of our liberal sexual mores. And I'm not wrong. Because it turns out, and I've said this again before, but there's a big piece in the Daily Mail about this today, that people traffickers are using videos on social media advertising their wares, and this is in all different languages to all these different kinds of men, networks of accounts on TikTok and on Instagram. And what are they advertising? They're using footage of scantily clad women interacting with what appears to be migrants. Most of them, unsurprisingly, seem to have blonde hair. They know what they're doing. When a politician's going to wake up and admit that because they're not getting on top of this crisis, little girls are endangered?
A lot to talk about there. I mean, look, it was the first I heard of the case that you talked about. That sounds really horrible, the Sri Lankan guy, and I really hope he faces justice. Similarly, for the people smugglers, what they do is horrible every step of the way. Everything you hear about them is pure play exploitation. And look, it should be an absolute consensus across the House that this is a priority to be dealing with, because people are suffering. Nobody wins from the business of people smugglers.
So why don't we just take a leaf out of Australia's book? Because they faced this issue and they have shown us how we deal with this, which is turn those boats around. You stop them coming in, and do you know what? The minute the boats realise they can't cross the channel, people would stop getting in the boats. They would stop then flocking to Calais. Why not just do that? Because all this prevarication, all this political posturing, oh, it's not kind, it's not nice, is every single day another girl falls victim to somebody. And you know what? I don't care about how it might look on the international stage. I don't care about whether politicians want to protect their reputations and not risk being called names like racist or xenophobe. I don't care. What I care about is the safety of little girls in this country. It should be a #1 priority. If a toy was found to have a choking hazard, right? A little sort of bit came off the side of an Action Man, the product would be recalled lest a single child chokes on it. And yet when it comes to all these men coming from countries totally unvetted, oh no, the safety of kids doesn't matter then. What is prioritised is these men. Why?
I mean, I think we both agree that violence against women and girls, absolute scourge in our society, and I want to see it stamped out. Sadly, I would challenge your narrative that we are importing those attitudes. I think we have them here in the UK.
Of course we do, but I'm sorry, we've got some misogynists and the like in the UK, but I have lived in multiple countries around the world, and worked in multiple countries. And if anyone wants to try and pretend to me that someone in Afghanistan has the same attitudes towards women as a British guy, you ain't pulling the wool over my eyes. You ain't putting the burqa on me, sunshine. I know exactly what these misogynistic men think.
I think that's a gross generalisation. There are very many very lovely Afghan men, and there are Afghan men who are evil, and it's the same for British men. I don't think you can compare one nationality against the other. What I would say,
of course you can. There's a country where people force women to cover themselves up from head to toe. They can't leave the house without an escort and get stoned to death, compared to us. You can't say that's like and like.
You're not going to catch me defending the Taliban, Alex, but what I'm talking about is people who leave the Taliban. They have fled that regime for a reason. They don't want to be associated with that. But the main point here is that if we are serious about tackling violence against women and girls, which I think is the core issue here, you would really start with the biggest problem, and that is homegrown. That is British men raping women. I think any woman would be able to give you a horrible account of a horrible experience they've had. And that shows how far-reaching this problem is in the UK. So start with the big issues. That's not to downplay any instance of sexual assaults, rape on behalf of anybody who's not British. Equally serious. They should all be facing justice.
I'm sorry, Sebastian, you're wrong on this. I like you incredibly, but you're wrong on this. We are importing horrible practices from misogynistic countries. It is not okay. All right, but thank you to Sebastian, nonetheless. We're going to take a short break now, but coming up after the break, Donald Trump decided at some point that he didn't like the EU, I think quite a while ago, but he's gone one step further now. In his latest leaked document of his national security strategy, it shows that he wants to get 4 countries out of it. We're discussing that with the brilliant Niall Gardner just after this.
We need to have a conversation about class in this country and not about the colour of your skin.
It's the Harris playbook, right? They have Beyonce, we've got Lenny Henry.
Little Lily would rather have a Lip Smackers lip gloss from aisle 3 of Target than a freaking whatever that ball roller was that Meghan was so proud of herself about.
We've become such a soft touch that our system is so easy to kind of work around and take advantage of.
Girl, you might be able to earn some money quickly, but no one's going to marry you.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back, and let's welcome aboard HMS Common Sense the wonderful Niall Gardner, foreign policy and analyst for the Heritage Foundation in America, former aide to Margaret Thatcher. How are you doing, Niall?
Great to see you, Alex. Many thanks for having me on the show today.
You've done a brilliant piece in The Telegraph today, haven't you? Talking about how Western civilization can only be saved if the EU is abolished, which pretty much seems to endorse what Donald Trump has said in the leaked security report, suggesting he wants the US to pull 4 countries away from the EU. Could it happen? Could it work?
Well, that's a great question, and I should mention, of course, that the White House has denied the existence of the document, but I don't see how this is controversial at all if indeed the United States is working to pull countries out of the European Union. I think the EU is an absolute tyranny, and it is anti-American. It's also, frankly, anti-European. So I think it's a good thing if the United States is working to pull some European countries out of the European Union's orbit, and of course the actions that the European Commission have taken against Elon Musk this in the past few days, the fine against Elon Musk, suppression of freedom of speech, absolutely appalling, dictatorial, Orwellian, and so the European Union, I think, acts fundamentally against American interests, and so if the Trump administration is supporting the breakup of the European Union, I think that's a very positive development, actually, and that would be very good for the United States and for Europe as well.
He singles out, or he doesn't, this leaked document, which hasn't been claimed officially, singles out Austria, Italy, Hungary and Poland. I'm going to imagine it's because that those 4 countries are governed largely by politicians at the centre-right.
Yes, I mean, I think so. I would say that in terms of Euroscepticism, it's significantly stronger in Poland and Hungary than it is in Austria, for example. Austria is still very Euro federalist, but Euroscepticism is very, very strong, of course, Eastern Europe, and also in parts of Italy as well. Alex, I do think that within 20 or 30 years, the European Union may not exist at all. It will implode. And sovereignty and self-determination are immensely powerful forces. And I don't see how the EU is going to survive in the long term. And so I do think the Trump administration is looking forward to a future Europe based upon sovereign nation states. And that's a really good thing that we should really be celebrating and cheering on, actually. And as I said in the Telegraph this week, that the European Union should be abolished. It would be a great victory for freedom and sovereignty, actually, and for liberty if the EU disappeared altogether.
Now, I believe that your role at the biggest and best think tank over in America is basically a purview when it comes to foreign policy, and particularly European foreign policy. How do you see things developing over here? Because you may have seen in the news that the president of Rassemblement National, the young Jordan Bardella, was recently over meeting Nigel Farage. Can you see a situation where we end up with more populist leaders in Europe willing to come together and work together and tackle the issues such as mass migration?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I met with Jordan Bardella in Paris a few months ago. He's a very impressive figure. He's the front runner to be the next French president. And he's pledged to work closely with the next British government in stopping the boats crossing the Channel. And so I think that what Bardella represents, and many other figures on the right in Europe, is a renewed sense of freedom and liberty. Is the exact antithesis, frankly, of Emmanuel Macron, who's been an absolute disaster for France. And so the fact that Bardella has met with Nigel Farage, I think it's a very, very positive development. And we could see a French government actually working together with Great Britain against illegal migration. And that would be a shocking development after decades of useless leadership in France. And I think that Bardella represents the future of France. I think he would be a very successful president, and clearly he wants to work together with the British people, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I've always thought the global socialists are much better at coordinating and cooperating than perhaps on the right, and they like to play divide and conquer as well. You know, they like to do that sort of shame thing. Oh, look, Nigel Farage has met up with someone from the AFD. Oh, they're all racists, you know, and I just think we've got to get over that. We've got to get over this nonsense. Niall, thank you ever so much. It's wonderful catching up with you, the fantastic Niall Gardiner there. If you want to let me know your thoughts on anything we are talking about, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You could also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. I love a voice note. 87222 is the number if you'd rather send me a text message. If you're going to do that, you've got to write the word talk before you text. OK, taking a little break now, but don't go anywhere because I'm back just after this.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. And I'm pleased to say welcome into the studio the brilliant Andy Williams, political commentator, who we like to suggest is our sort of person from the left that we bring in to beat the drum for the Labour Party, but not always. But I always love it when you're here. You just cheer me right up.
Thanks, Alex. That's very sweet.
You're one of my nicest people I know.
Oh.
You're just such a good human. Your politics are rubbish, but I just really like you.
I was wondering, where was the backhanded compliment?
Yeah, buttering you up. It's sort of like a sledging tactic before we get into the debates.
Very good.
Okay, let's start off with... I don't want to do that story. You're not going to do that one. Let's start off with peerages, shall we? Because, look, you know... When the Tories were in power, they flooded the Lords with their cronies.
Exactly.
When Labour's in power, they flood the Lords with their cronies. So we can all bleat on about how that's not OK. Reform didn't get any peers. The Lib Dems seemingly got more than they should be due. Badenoch only got 3. And Starmer gave himself 25, getting rid of hereditary peers. Boom, boom, boom. Great things are going to pass through Parliament. You can't blame politics for being politics, right? At the end of the day.
That's the system.
But it does shine a light on whether it's a good system to have.
Yeah. So here's my view on it. There are some people who say this is a completely anti-democratic nonsense and we should just abolish the House of Lords. I don't think that. It's important that we have a second chamber.
Yeah.
And actually there are elements of that. So I definitely am not in favour of the status quo, but there are elements of the current system that I think are quite good. And I think by tweaking it could work much better. So I think appointed peers are good because what you're doing is you're bringing in genuine expertise from business, the arts, wherever. You're bringing in, you know, if you like, I don't think he turns up very much, but Andrew Lloyd Webber, for example, who is better qualified to talk about theatre, the arts than Andrew Lloyd Webber? Yes. It's good to have people like him in the House of Lords. It's good to have scientists in the House of Lords. But the problem is they're appointed by politicians. And what we should have, and I know that the challenge to this is, well, what would independent mean? But we should have an independent body or a commission of some kind that is not political, and every year they look at the breadth of British public life and say, you'd be really good. And if those individuals want to then align with a party, that's absolutely fine.
I think it's perfectly OK for a party to potentially nominate someone that they think would be a good voice, but I think I would sort of draw a line...
Perhaps there should be a scrutinising committee.
Yeah.
So the parties, the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, nominate someone, but a committee goes, hang on a minute, because the problem is some of these people will probably end up being very good peers, but others are just, as you say, Keir Starmer's mates.
Yeah. I mean, I think it should be a case that if you've, you know, been a long-time donor to a particular political party, perhaps it's, you know, shouldn't be you. Or maybe it could be you, but it's not allowed to come from the political party you've given money to.
Yeah.
You know, because there might be some people who are brilliant in business, who've been lifelong Conservative donors or Labour donors, who then wouldn't make the chop. But certainly this cronification, the system we've got now, how many Lords have we got, for crying out loud?
It's something like 800. I mean, I think I'm right in saying it's the second largest legislative chamber in the world.
Yeah, haven't we got, if you put the Commons and the Lords together, more than the biggest in the world?
Yeah, it's like 1,400 legislators. I mean, we just don't need
that. And
I think the House of Commons is... I actually think the
governments.
House of Commons is too big, by the way. I would cut that to more like 400. But
It's
the
crazy.
Lords is huge. So it does need reform. The other thing that's slightly weird about this round of peerages, two things. Number one is that the Tories getting fewer than the Lib Dems is just
not okay.
Straight up wrong.
Yes.
Because it should be done proportionally on the basis of the number of seats you have in Parliament. And so it's nothing to do whether I like the Lib Dems or the Tories or whatever.
I think
the Tories should have more.
I think reform getting zero is wrong as well.
But they're less than 1% of Parliament. This is the thing. We've got to remember, forget the polls for a minute. The polls are a snapshot of how people feel now. But Reform have fewer than 1% of MPs.
Okay,
they have 5, right?
But the Green Party have people in the Lords?
Yeah, they do, but I don't think they had any in this round, did they?
I don't know, actually. I don't think so, no.
No, they haven't, but yeah.
I mean, let's see what happens, because under a Reform government, they might struggle if they've got absolutely no friendly faces on the green bench, on the red benches.
Well, but by the way, this is the point. They're being critical today of Starmer, cronyism, la 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 la. They would, and I wouldn't blame them.
They would do
exactly the same.
Of course course they would. Of course they would. Who would you, because I've been asking the audience this actually, who would you nominate? If someone said to you, you get a pick of who you would like to see in the Lords because you just think they're a good egg.
Can I come back to you at the end for that? Because I'll have to think about it. It's a good question.
Can you double think at the same time? Can you think about it? Yeah? Can you?
I'll try. I can't. Nobody immediately springs to mind. I mean, the answer that would really annoy talk viewers and listeners would be Gary Lineker, wouldn't it?
Well done, well played. Yes, it would. Well, the man can kick a ball. No, do you know who mine is?
Go on.
Mine is Tim Martin. Weatherspoon's Tim Martin.
Oh, okay.
Because I think he has done so much for hospitality, so much for saving heritage buildings, so much providing cheap meals to the elderly and whoever else, so much for backing British business and British booze. I just think he's been a great pioneer in the world of hospitality.
I can't disagree with that.
That's under attack.
I was going to say exactly that. We need more people from the world of hospitality involved in politics because time and time again, these businesses are over. You know, my favourite thing to do with any spare money is go out for dinner. I love going out to nice restaurants and going to the pub. Like, there's nothing better. And they're all being hammered with taxes and inflation, and it's tough. So yeah.
There we go. Yay, we agreed on Tim Martin. Good. Right, Sir Tim, because I think he should be knighted as well. OK, that's that one done. Kaboom, and I will come back to you for your peer. Now, childhood criminal records to be wiped clean by David Lammy. Now, this isn't as black and white as that because I think there is going to be a threshold as if, you know, if you're like, you know, a murderer or a drug dealer or a child sexual offender, might be a different element. But I find myself actually kind of agreeing with this. You know, if you've done something wayward as a teenager, as a kid, that shouldn't have to affect the rest of your life.
Totally agree. I mean, it's one thing if you're the Bulger twins and you've murdered a 4-year-old, like, obviously, you know. But for people who've committed relatively minor offences, and I know that some people would say, well, there's no such thing as victimless crime, but relatively minor offences, there should be something about, like, that shouldn't jeopardise, I don't think, the prospects you have for the rest of your life. I see, as an aside, and this is unrelated, but they're talking about changing the rules so that if you've been convicted of a criminal offence, you can't stand for Parliament. And I think it's high time we did that. I can't believe that there are people serving in Parliament who've been in prison. I mean, it's madness. So.
I actually would agree with that as well. But we do agree that, you know, what you might do as a kid is a separate thing to an adult.
I think so. I think it just depends.
I'm smirking at you here because I've laid a little trap for you.
OK, go on. I'm looking forward to it.
Because the last time we met, we were discussing Nigel Farage and what he said in the playground.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah,
and
right.
Well, remind me what I said.
I can't remember actually. Right. But I was going to assume
I think I said nobody knows whether he did or didn't say those things, right? Him and the people who are accusing him of making those remarks are the only people who know. If he did say those things, then he is anti-Semitic and a racist.
He was a kid. See, this is the thing. I kind of think it's, you know, if you nick a bike as a kid and then you make a comment in a playground as a kid, I think nicking the bike is worse.
It's one thing teasing people. It's one thing making jokes that are off colour because you're a child. But when you're making jokes about Auschwitz.
But the thing is, look, it's not. Look, I'm not saying it's okay, but what I'm saying is neither's nicking a blimmin' bicycle. Kids push boundaries. Kids do all sorts of things. We don't know whether or not he did this. And
personally,
my view
I think rampant anti-Semitism is worse than stealing a bicycle. But there we go.
Right, let's move on. You didn't fall into my trap. Well, I think you did, but there you are. Let's talk about, we can't do that, we don't have a face with that. Let's talk about ECHR reform. I just feel it's an effort in vain. I just have a feeling you need all of the members to signatories to say, right, we need to change it, and we haven't got all of them. We've got 27 out of 46. But also there's, you know, various lawyers are suggesting that, well, you know, by the time you've gone through it and tweaked a few technicalities, it probably ain't going to make much of a difference.
The ECHR is just like the European Union was before Brexit. It's the latest bogeyman that people on the right are blaming.
Oh, it's been a bogeyman for ages.
Blaming all of our problems on. The problem with people on the extremes of politics, and particularly on the right, is they have very easy solutions. It's like, we just need to leave this, we should ban that, we should end this, we should slash and burn. It's all, oh, we'll just leave the ECHR and everything will be fine. The lesson of Brexit is just because you decide we're going to leave a thing doesn't mean that everything will magically be better. In fact, things might get worse. Is the ECHR perfect? No. But is it on balance a good thing? Absolutely it is, and we should be part of it.
I've been against the damn thing for ages, ever since Theresa May wanted it gone.
Why?
Because I don't think anything should have sovereignty over Parliament or our own legal system. I just don't, simply.
But what about if...
Because that, to me, is completely anti-democratic when the plane taking migrants over to Rwanda is cancelled because a judge in Strasbourg says so. I just think that's totally wrong.
But something like human rights, this shouldn't be a nation-state by nation-state question. There should be an agreed international standard of what is appropriate when it comes to human rights, and I think that's worth safeguarding.
But, I mean, I think there is an agreed international standard. You know, we have the UN, who, as much as I dislike them as well, tend to hold people to account. We've got the International Criminal Court in The Hague. We have these things.
Yeah,
you
the ECHR plays an important role alongside those institutions. Institutions are not a bad thing per se. And I think it's very easy when you look at the state of, you know, the economy and lots of people having a very difficult time to go, oh, it's the ECHR. It's not the ECHR.
We've been saying this for ages, though.
That's not
Ever since we couldn't, you know,
that is
start
not why
deporting
people
terrorists.
don't have enough money in their pockets. That's not why productivity is
No, but it is why terrorists couldn't be extradited. It is why certain migrants are sort of able to have 3-4 rolls of the dice demanding that they stay here for some spurious reason.
Look, we obviously need to look at the appeals process, but actually, again, I know that listeners would massively disagree with me on this. I think it's a price worth paying to have people who come here illegally in the country for longer if they're given due process, because there are genuine asylum seekers who are coming over here fleeing torture and war, and I think those people deserve a fair hearing. So if it's a price worth, if I believe it's a price worth paying to say, unfortunately, some people who are trying to sort of, you know, circumvent the system, it's worth it to give people who are genuine asylum seekers the opportunity to plead their case.
I've just seen so many successive government ministers wanting to pull out their hair because whatever they try and do, whatever they try and put into place, they suddenly butt up against Strasbourg. And
but government ministers, do you know what? Government ministers...
I don't think it's fair on the population.
I've worked with and dealt with plenty of government ministers over the last 15 years, and the good ministers get stuff done. They just do. And bad ministers blame everyone else. I mean,
clearly, though, the Labour Party, if they're sort of talking about having to reform the ECHR, realising it's a bit of an albatross around the neck.
Your friend Liz Truss famously blames the deep state for the disastrous failure of her premiership. It wasn't the deep state, it was the fact that she is rubbish and was temperamentally and intellectually ill-suited to be even a government minister, let alone prime minister. I mean,
she is not here to defend herself, and so I'm not going to...
No, she's not. She's busy grifting somewhere, I imagine.
Oh, leave her alone. She's having a good time. She's out doing her thing, and God will her along. OK, let's talk about well, two stories which to me are interconnected. It's becoming a sort of all too familiar story now. In the papers, another migrant who'd been living in a migrant hotel, abducted, raped a 15-year-old, beating, strangling, carried her away against her will, Feltham, West London. This is a Sri Lankan, Yashin Himasara, 20 years old. These are becoming more and more frequent, these reports. I think we've got to acknowledge we have a big problem, and linked to this is this story in the Mail. I've talked about this a lot, which is the fact that the people traffickers, travel agents as they like to call themselves, on all their various social media platforms in all different languages, catering for all different audiences, are routinely using, as part of their promotional videos, young British women on a night out, flirting, having a drink, wearing a little dress, basically going, yeah, look what it's like being a migrant over here, look at all the girls you can get. It's sick. It's not OK. The two are connected.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, that is obviously a horrific incident. But I'm sensing that the implication is that it's something to do with him being Sri Lankan that has caused him to commit this crime, and it's just clearly not. I mean, there are horrible people who will do awful things of all races, of all nationalities. We can think of countless British white criminals who have done unspeakable things.
There's massive cultural differences with men from certain cultures and the way they regard women. And also, and this is something that when you look at these videos, these promotional videos, you notice something. Almost all of the women in them have blonde hair. Now, as a girl who used to live on the Indian subcontinent, down in the very deep south of Tamil Nadu with the Tamils, and I love them, by the way. My gosh, I was like the Pied Piper. You know, you can't walk down the street in that part of India with blonde hair without...
No, I'm sure. And I've been to Morocco and it's...
Oh my gosh,
parts
Morocco
of North
is like
Africa,
running the groping gauntlet. I love Morocco as well, but I would never go there without a male accompanying me. I just wouldn't. So this is the problem. This is a reality.
I think we need to be... I take part of your point, which is about we need to make sure that anybody who lives in this country subscribes to values of equality and respect for women as individuals, not just objects. That is incredibly important. What I am very uncomfortable with is the suggestion that this crime was perpetrated because of this particular individual's skin colour, race, nationality. Like, it's not...
I'm not saying it's about skin colour, race and nationality. I'm actually saying it's about culture and cultural attitudes, which aren't in line with the subscribing to our values.
I understand that, but it's quite a big leap to go from not subscribing to our values to abducting, strangling and raping someone.
Do you understand why there are so many women out on the streets day after day protesting? Do you understand why there are so many women saying we've had enough? Because we live now in a country where we are getting harassed, we are getting leered at, we are feeling endangered, we are feeling intimidated.
Women, I mean, it's difficult because I'm not a woman, so it's very difficult for... I'm not you know, saying that your experience isn't the case.
I should hope not.
But I'm afraid it's always been the case that women were harassed and leered at, and I'm sure it was much worse in the 1970s.
I actually think it was probably better in the 1970s.
I'm sure. I'm convinced it wasn't.
But you said yourself about going to Morocco and seeing how women can be treated there and the harassment. I didn't say harassment.
I think women, particularly blonde women, as you say, get a lot of attention in places like that. I personally haven't seen people being harassed. I'm sure it happens.
Oh my God, I've had someone grab me between the legs there.
But if you, I'm sure it does happen, and it's awful when it does. But you know, are we really saying that in Britain 2025? It's worse, and it's a worse place to be a woman than it was in the 1970s. I just don't believe that.
I wasn't alive in the 1970s, but I was alive in the 1990s and the noughties and the tens. And what I can say is in the 2020s, it is much worse as a woman, much worse, precisely because of open door immigration. I've left London because of it. I got fed up with walking down Earl's Court Road and just being pursued relentlessly by men who I did not want anywhere near me. And you know, talking to you and they start opening their mouth and talking and persistently following you. You can tell. I can tell the difference between you and someone who clearly isn't you.
You don't know where I was born.
Oh, for crying out loud, this is getting stupid. Of course you can tell. Look, if there's a man wearing an Afghan Kopal hat with a very thick accent following you persistently, chuntering away in a language that's unfamiliar, he's not British.
I'm being a bit facetious, but my point stands, which is that it just cannot be the case that this is an explicitly or an exclusively migrant problem. It is not.
No, I'm not saying that you do not get white British men or British men of any skin colour. Skin colour is not what we're talking about here. I just want to clearly park that to one side. I'm not an ethno-nationalist, I never will be. But culturally, of course you can tell when someone's British and not British. You can hear it in their accent, the way that they respond. And I'll tell you one thing, right? A British man might go and go, all right, love, but then that's it. When you're not interested, they tend to leave you alone. The big difference between them and a lot of these men coming over is the persistence, the dogged pursuit. And it is intimidating and it is horrible. And there'll be lots of women listening to that there who know exactly what I mean. you know, the men who come sit right next to you at the train carriage. I'm sorry, but built into the sort of unspoken rules of British culture is you don't go, if there's loads of empty seats on a train, you don't go sit next to the solo woman. There's a sort of, you know, if a woman says clear off, you clear off.
Yeah.
There's a whole load of these learned behaviours that are socially unacceptable or socially acceptable, and this is the difference in the attitudes towards women. And I think we've got to be comfortable having that conversation, because at the end of the day, what's more important, right? Protecting your own sense of self and not wanting to appear a racist, or protecting women and girls?
Of course, no, I totally agree with that.
Oh, Andy, Pia. Can you think twice at once?
I still don't have one.
Come on, you've got to. I'm going to give you a 10-second. I'm getting my truth gun out of its holster. Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
I'll tell you, actually,
5.
okay, here's one, which is a bit off-piste. There's a guy called David Yelland. He used to be the editor of The Sun. He does an amazing podcast called When It Hits the Fan, which is about like celebrities and businesses that handle crisis really badly. But he's a really, really intelligent guy. He'd have a huge amount to offer on the future of the media. He's a recovering alcoholic and is very outspoken about that, and I think that is a really interesting
and well done,
aspect.
because his heritage is in this building.
In UCK,
so there
absolutely.
You go.
There we go. So I've been on brand.
Points.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been lovely to see you again, my darling. Thank you ever so much. Right,
Thanks, Alex.
Hold on. We got a call. Wait, you don't go anywhere in case you might want to respond to this. Let's speak to Simon, who's in Bournemouth. Oh, Bournemouth. That's a hotbed of activity on the best of days. How are you doing, Simon?
I'm very well. How are you? You all right?
I'm okay, yeah, fine. What's on your mind?
So I was tuning in a little earlier. Well, I've been listening to the whole show. It's been great. But I was tuning in a little earlier, and you were having a conversation with this guy that was arguing for you know, we can't leave the ECHR. But what frustrates me, hearing any Labour politician saying, oh, we can't do this, it's wrong to do this, and trying to sell us the ECHR, is they don't realise now they've gone from, in reality, they've gone from 411 seats. In the real world, if we were to vote tomorrow, they've got 11 seats. So they're speaking from such a small minority, and they're just in an illusion that just because in principle they've got those seats, that they're actually really stand for what the people want in this country. We're out, we're gone. The next party will get into power on that in their manifesto. So I can guarantee you that at the last minute, they'll start talking a noise of, oh, okay, we might leave the ECHR. Because they're just not responding to public, you know, outcry. It's ridiculous. I can't listen to Labour MPs anymore.
Oh, there you go. Do you want to come back on that one, Andy?
So, just to be clear, Simon, is what you're saying that you think Labour at the last minute, in a desperate attempt to stay in office, will say that they'll leave the ECHR?
Well, if you tell me anything, you could be lying, because Labour lie all the time, so I wouldn't believe you anyway.
Well, I'm not a Labour Party spokesperson, and I've been on this station a number of times in the last few months expressing my extreme frustration about the way Labour has not told the truth, particularly around tax and in the run-up to the budget. So, unfortunately, I think their credibility is shot to bits on that front. But on this, I just don't think that that leaving the ECHR is a serious... I think people assume that this might just transform the country for the better, and that is not going to happen. You know, reform, reform are out there with all of these very, very easy solutions. If only we just did this, it would be fine. And they said, it's a different issue, but they said, judge us on our record in local councils, because we're going to go in and it's going to be Doge and we're going to chop out all of this spending. What's happened? Council tax up by the maximum amount in every single council.
Yeah, they have actually got rid of some waste in some councils, haven't they? They've just got a new character from the Tories who's going to be
And they're still putting council tax up by the maximum amount, right? So, judge them on the record. They're going to be exactly the same.
Well, one could say that was very much set out, wasn't it, in the very first King's speech, when Sir Keir Starmer decided he was going to devolve a load of competences, such as social care, down to local council level. It was always inevitable that they'd have to spend more, because they have more on their plate.
Well, yeah, and that needs to be blown up and started again as well.
There you go, blow it up and start it again. Simon, there you go. What do you think of that response?
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
You can't judge reform on their councils. You can't take it that seriously, because if you're not controlling the accelerator or the steering wheel of the country, then you're not really directing anything. And whilst Labour's in charge, they're not going to get the right stream flow of support. They're going to actually be obstacles we put in their way. Reform will do a fantastic job for this country. And if it ends up Reform Conservatives at the very last minute, who knows? That will be also outstanding. But, you know, the current system's broken. We've got to try something new. Give them one shot, one go, 4 years. You know, if they're rubbish, we'll kick them out, but give them a go.
I mean, firstly, Reform said, Nigel Farage said, judge us on our record in local councils. He said that, not me. So that's why I'm judging them on their record, which admittedly is not very long. But
no,
in
that's
terms
true. They haven't been doing it for very long.
But in terms of them being brilliant for the country, they don't have a credible plan. Do you know what they have a credible plan for? Cryptocurrency regulation. That's about the only thing they've actually given any thought to.
It's fair to say that we are still a long way off a general election. And what do manifestos matter anyway? One might ask Sir Keir Starmer. But it's the same accusation, I think, can go to all sorts of parties at this stage. The Conservative Party don't seem to have a plan. The Labour Party had a plan and they're doing something completely different. Simon in Bournemouth, thank you ever so much. And Andy Williams, he's too good to be true. Thank you for being back in the studio. Okay, we're going to take a short break now. Keep your thoughts coming in, by the way. 0344 499 1000 is the number to dial. If, like Simon, you want to have a chat with us in the studio, I'd love it to be you, especially if you've not phoned in before. Come on. Go on. 0344 499 1000, also the number on WhatsApp. You can send me a voice note on WhatsApp as well. I do like them. 87222 if you're going to text me, right? Talk before you text. And after the break, we're going to be talking about net zero and how problematic, to coin a favourite term of the left, it is proving to be. That's after this.
We need to have a conversation about class in this country and not about the colour of your skin.
It's the Harris playbook, right? They have Beyonce, we've got Lenny Henry.
Little Lily would rather have a lip smacker's lip gloss from aisle 3 of Target than a freaking whatever that ball roller was that Meghan was so proud of herself about.
We've become such a soft touch that our system is so easy to kind of work around and take advantage of.
Girl, you might be able to earn some money quickly, but no one's going to marry you.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back. Welcome aboard HMS Common, says Maurice Cousins, Campaigns Director at Net Zero Watch. Hi Maurice, how you doing?
Very well. Good afternoon, or happy Christmas, I should say.
A happy Christmas to you as well. Now, quelle surprise, it turns out that Ed Miliband's rabid desire to make Britain net zero by 2050, although it didn't really start with him, it started under one Mr. Johnson, will cost the country £350 billion pounds more than if we sort of tried to get there during a reasonable journey. And this is analysis by the National Energy System Operator, who actually previously had said that come 2030 we could be facing lights out because we've got absolutely no gas coming our way, especially as Norway haven't got anything much going on anymore. We're not allowed to do exploratory drilling. I mean, it's just balmy. We're talking about 500 quid for every household in Britain, and that doesn't even take into consideration the amount at which manufacturing and industry is decimated.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising. It's surprising, really, how fast the narrative is unraveling since Labour got elected, and I think that's really a consequence of the breakdown in the consensus between the Tories and Labour. But really, what they're sort of saying is that this rushed approach is more expensive than a more pragmatic one. And when you really boil it down, it's that this government is putting ideology ahead of the national interest. Every single one of their election promises around energy have started to unravel. Do you remember that during the election campaign they said that it would save us, I think, about £300 for off our electricity bill? They've subsequently sort of had to abandon that since the author of that promise has distanced himself from it. You've had Tony Blair as well saying that rushing ahead with their plans is push up energy bills. You've had energy companies themselves saying that this is going to push up our energy bills. And really what it boils down to, Alex, is that people have just been lied to year in, year out about the benefits of net zero, and a lot of those chickens are coming home to roost.
It's madness at this stage. It is self-flagellation. There was a ridiculous story in the papers today against oil refineries in Scotland, the tragic loss of jobs ever since Ed Zero decided to pour concrete down oil wells and not allow any exploratory drilling. And he said, don't worry, all those job losses, we're going to actually create a company or give a government backing to a company who wants to make vegan omega-3. Grow some algae. I'm just like, for crying out loud. You're literally going, we've lost all these jobs in oil and gas, all the potential profits, the diplomatic leverage, the energy security, the geopolitical upper hand you could get if you were able to not just provide yourself with fossil fuel, but sell it. Don't worry, we're going to grow some blimmin' algae for the odd vegan. He's mad.
Utterly mad. And you hit the nail on the head there when you talk about the security dimensions to this. I don't know whether or not you or your listeners have read the US National Security Strategy that was published last week. And this is one of those so-called anti-civilizational forces that they talk about when they say that Europe and Britain are in really serious trouble. A lot of people are focusing on the immigration dimension, but what also the report highlighted is how deindustrialization and expensive energy are making us weaker and vulnerable and an unreliable partner when it comes to security of this continent and of the West more broadly. And we need to remember this, that whenever people like Ed Miliband and that lot want to sort of pretend that net zero is making us more secure and that those who oppose it are somehow aligned with Vladimir Putin, they need to answer this question, which is that what they are pursuing is making us weaker. Objectively, that is true.
We're also having to cozy up to some pretty unsavoury characters in order to deliver some of his zealous promises. So, for instance, we anticipate that Sir Keir Starmer will bimble over to China in the new year. He's already sent multiple government ministers over there, and we know that we're buying a lot of windwams and solar panels from Beijing. And it turns out now, I've worried deeply and been told by people in intelligence agencies about the risk of there being kill switches connected to national grids, and look what happened in Spain. And it might seem quite trivial, but it turns out 85,000 tumble dryers based upon heat pumps could catch fire. And now people have got to unplug them, not use them. And guess where they come from? Oh, yeah, China.
Yeah, this is something that I don't think a lot of people really understand, which is that we're supposed to be climate leaders. That's what Ed Miliband and others like to sort of say. But all the gains from this are going to China. It's not us. We're not manufacturing any of this kit. We don't know what the standards. The standards of some of these things are not as safe as people like to make out. Often, some of these products are being made with slave labour, which is a really serious problem. British people are ethical people. They like to think that they're doing good. I'm not sure that they like the idea that some of this kit is being made by slaves in Xinjiang province. Some of the minerals that are being used in the rare earths as well are being used with sometimes like child labour and things like that in Africa. It's the whole project, this experiment with the green agenda, is a catastrophe from start to end, and nobody really benefits from it. The only people I seem to think who really are winning from this are China.
Yeah,
I can't think of anyone else who's benefiting from it. That and probably like some greedy.
Oh, and loads of the Gulf states, which are basically mafia families with an oil well. I mean, congratulations, well done, Mad Ed. Morris, I've got to let you go, my darling, but thank you ever so much for coming on the programme. The brilliant campaigns director of Net Zero Watch. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're joined by Rebecca Paul, MP, Conservative MP for Reigate, who has got some very strong opinions on Labour's grotesque puberty drug experiment. We're going to be discussing that after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I mean, I think one of the most mad U-turns I've seen in politics so far was Wes Streeting came out very strongly against puberty blockers, rightly so, saw them being banned, rightly so. And then all of a sudden, it seems to be totally OK that 200 innocent kids are being used as guinea pigs to trial them. Really? Why? If they're banned because we've decided that they're no good, that children can't make those decisions, that they have long-term health implications, why subject 200 children to their use, I don't know, as lab rats to see? Let's speak now to Rebecca Paul MP, who's a Conservative for Reigate and has written a brilliant piece in Politics Home on this. Rebecca, great to have you on the programme. OK, so let's talk about this. I mean, first of all, I think that we're still not ever really talking about the elephant in the room, which is the fact that once upon a time, genuine gender dysphoria was a very, very niche condition that very few children had and was treated as a mental health condition by a larger psychological condition. Then all of a sudden it becomes vogue, doesn't it? That social media is filled with it. Time Woman of the Year, Times Magazine Woman of the Year is that what's his chops, the ice skater person related to the Kardashians. And kids are being pumped all this information. Guess what? If you're unhappy, you can be anything you want. And now we seem to have a run on things like gender clinics and a load of very distressed young people. And this whole narrative around giving experimental medicines to kids, which clearly is grotesque and wrong, we still haven't managed to bury that. What's going on?
You're absolutely right. So back in the day, gender dysphoria was suffered by a tiny group of people, mainly boys actually. But what we're now finding is it's mainly girls. So it's completely changed, and it all correlates with smartphones and being online and some different approaches to teaching. You know, gender identity and ideology has become ingrained throughout a lot of our institutions. So surprise, surprise, all of a sudden you have more young people uncomfortable with their biological sex. And as you rightly say, the Health Secretary has to date been really strong on this. He rightly banned the use of puberty blockers, which are unlicensed for use in gender dysphoria. There's no substantial evidence for benefits and actually a lot of concerns around risks. So I completely supported him in the permanent ban that he put in place. But he's now pushing ahead with a clinical trial. And the really awful thing about this is that there is already 2,000 children that have taken puberty blockers over the last 15 years. And in the Cass review, which is what all of this is based upon, she made the point that it was really important to follow up those children, because we can obviously learn a lot from them. They've already taken them. Let's find out, what situation they're in, what their bone density looks like, how happy they are, what's their fertility like, what's their sexual function like. But instead of doing that, the NHS have been really challenging in terms of providing that data. And now instead of doing that common sense approach, they're saying, oh, let's go to a trial, let's take 226 physically healthy children, and we're going to experiment on them. We're going to give them puberty blockers. We're going to stop them going through natural puberty at the normal time, and we're going to see whether it impacts their sexual function, their fertility, their bone density, and what are the upsides of pausing someone's puberty.
It's a craziness. We know that early studies have shown that, and you write this in your article, 67 to 90% of children end up wanting to go back to their birth sex anyway. It kind of reminds me of the sort of peculiar approach to psychological conditions in Victorian asylums where you've got PTSD, so they give you a lobotomy. If you've got a problem in terms of a psychological issue, then you don't deal with it surgically or medically as an intervention. You deal with it holistically as a psychological condition. And I think it's very easy to see why so many young girls are suddenly thinking they're gender dysphoric, because they live in a society that pressurizes them aesthetically more than ever before. When the role models have to be a Kardashian, big lips, pumped up assets, all the rest of it. And the average teenage girl just can't compete with that and feels like she's totally worthless. And also, what we need to understand about girls, but because of the way we're wired, we're more prone to having herd mentality and group hysteria. So one girl suddenly goes, I don't want to be a girl anymore, the pressure's too much, I think I'm a boy. And you'll find a lot of girls in the friendship group start doing the same. And this is all, as far as I can tell, if you were to draw a graph and plot the growth of all these kids who suddenly think they're born in the wrong body, and social media, bam, there you have it, direct correlation. So why on earth are we not looking at that and instead deluding ourselves, well, not us, obviously, Rebecca, but people out there deluding themselves that this is something completely different and need to start trialing drugs? It's very clear to me what's going on.
Absolutely. common sense approach, right? And as you rightly say, 70 to 90% of these children that are uncomfortable with the sex they've been born, it actually resolves when they go through puberty. So basically what we're identifying is that some children have a challenging puberty, but actually, don't we all have a challenging puberty? It's not the easiest of times, and instead of letting them go through the one thing that will actually resolve the distress, they're actually saying they're going to do this trial, give them drugs that will lock them in to this distress. And as you rightly say, you identify the fact that girls are looking to opt out of womanhood for all sorts of reasons. You look at online pornography, all of these things, and the way women and girls are treated, that's likely a key factor. And when you look at the children that generally find themselves going through this, they tend to either grow up to be same-sex attracted, so that often young lesbians, or they're autistic, or they've suffered some kind of trauma. So we see looked after children overrepresented in this group. So this is an incredibly vulnerable group of children that just need support. They need support. They don't need...
What they don't need is to be lab rats and told they should take drugs that are going to affect their bone density, their height, their brain development, their fertility. And we know from a number of young people who've gone through changing their gender, that they can, in many cases, come to deeply regret it. It doesn't get rid of the psychological distress that they suffer. In many respects, it exacerbates it. And all of this, to me, Rebecca, seems to come down to the pressure of a small, very demanding, extremely vocal minority of people connected to certain charities who are relentless. And we, as a common sense society, who should put the safeguarding of children front and centre, and we don't, do we, ever anymore? We don't deal with the fact we live in a hypersexualised world. We've barely dealt with how kids are affected by social media. We've got various people banging the drum to still let men in Fox go and sleep in the Brownie Guides camps. What is going on here? Why has everybody lost their mind when the number one consideration in any society should be the protection of kids? And here we are experimenting on them.
I couldn't agree with you more. We should absolutely be putting child safeguarding first. And the problem we've got is that actually, if you go out and speak to people on the street, most people have got the same view as you and I. But actually, what happens when you speak out, what we've seen over the last 10, 15 years, is that these small, very loud groups, as you've rightly said, set out to absolutely destroy people's lives that don't believe in their orthodoxy. You're treated as a blasphemer. We've seen women cancelled. We've seen them lose their jobs. People are terrified to actually say, this is wrong. Don't give these physically healthy children drugs. Leave them alone. If you're an adult, fine, go do what you want, but leave the kids alone.
If you're not going to let them get tattoos, drink alcohol, drive cars, get married, get a mortgage, then you can't give them life-altering, body-changing drugs. It just makes no sense. Here's an interesting thing for you, Rebecca. One of our listeners, Becca, and I haven't Googled this to see if it's true, but she says, Alex, should we mention the fact that Wes Streeting was head of education for Stonewall? Did you know that?
So he was. That's very true. And I think the health secretary does know that this isn't the right way forwards, and I think he's been a little bit political at the moment. I think he's under huge pressure from the LGBTQ plus set within Labour, and obviously there's lots of things going on in Labour at the moment, so trying to keep those happy. And he knows this isn't the right thing to do, and I'm going to keep calling on him to do the right thing. He did the right thing last time, and I hope he will now, and I hope he won't go ahead with the Streeting trial.
I mean, he has actually admitted he should have spoken up sooner at Stonewall and the National Union of Students to defend women who voiced concerns about trans issues. So good on you, Wes. And good on you, Rebecca. It's important work that you do, because I just cannot bear the thought of even one child having their life ruined because some people with interesting ideologies think that it's okay to foist particular concepts onto little kids. I'm going to read you a bit of breaking news now. Oh, how many ways can you flog a dead horse, eh? They ain't going to let this playground comment story go, are they? Because the roll-on development now is a statement from Nigel Farage's former school. Of course, people have contacted Dulwich College to get a response. And of course, Dulwich College is going to have to reply. No doubt there's some pretty woke parents sending their kids to that school who might not like the connection of their school's reputation to these alleged comments that were made by Nigel Farage. They've said allegations that Farage made racist and anti-Semitic comments are profoundly distressing and entirely at odds with the Dulwich College of today. What we can unequivocally state is that the behaviours described are entirely at odds with the Dulwich College of today. There you go. That's what they say. Well, there you go. What do you expect them to say? We love it. Brilliant. We hope he did make those comments. Woohoo! Now come and subscribe to us. Pay hefty fees to send your kid here. Finishing school for fascists. Of course they're not going to say anything different from that. It is desperate behaviour. They keep trying to squeeze more blood from the stone, don't they? And again, I just find it so funny that David Lamb is like, well, you know, if kids were nicking stuff, doing stuff, you know, breaking the law, that should be wiped from their records. That shouldn't be dragged around in judgment on them as adults. It's like, what about things said in the playground, eh? What about things you said about the President of the United States about 2 years ago on social media? Next thing you're in the Oval Office, eh? Hypocrite any? Anyway, let's take a little break now. When we come back, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by the fantastic Skogmeister, Dean Scoggins, Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun, to give you the latest sports news. That's after this.
We need to have a conversation about class in this country and not about the colour of your skin.
It's the Harris playbook, right? They have Beyonce, we've got Lenny Henry.
Little Lily would rather have a lip smacker's lip gloss from aisle 3 of Target than a freaking whatever that ball roller was that Megan was so proud of herself about.
We've become such a soft touch that our system is so easy to kind of work around and take advantage of.
Girl, you might be able to earn some money quickly, but no one's going to marry you.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, I promised the Scoggins, but he's busy practising his darts throwing. So we've gone one better, haven't we? Because we've got Sean Custis instead, who's the head of sport. Who needs the deputy when you've got the main man himself, the big boss? Now, sports. Yeah, we're going to have a good old moan about this, aren't we, this first story?
Yeah, we are, because football ticket prices at the World Cup have been exercised in everybody's mind today. There's a ballot, general ballot, started this afternoon for FIFA World Cup, but it has transpired that if you want a ticket for the final, the World Cup final in New York, the cheapest ticket you'll be able to get...
And this is before hotels and flights, which will also be...
£3,119. Now then...
Why?
Not surprisingly, the Football Supporters Europe body, which designed to protect fans, says it's astonished. Everybody's calling on FIFA to rethink their pricing structure and to call a halt to this. I mean, just if you're an England fan, say we were going to get to the final, it's going to cost you more than £5,000 to go to every game. That's before, as you say, you factor in travel, accommodation.
Oh yeah, and all those prices are hugely inflated.
It's off the scale. I mean, for the final, for instance, the cheapest ticket is 7 times what it was in Qatar.
It's so wrong.
2022.
Do you know what really annoys me about the whole world of sport in general? Most people who are really interested in sports, who really get into it, who follow their team, who want to watch everything, by and large, it tends to be from the working and lower middle classes.
Indeed.
And you can't blimmin' watch it on telly because you have to pay like a 80 quid a month subscription. You can't go to whether it's a Grand Prix, a boxing match, a football match, the terraces of the rugby. It costs so much money. Then you look at how much footballers are being paid, the ridiculous amounts now for transfer fees, whatever it is, buying players and TV rights, and you're just like, this is spiralling out of control.
But it's not just football, is it? It's gigs. We've heard so much about the cost of those and the resale of tickets and gigs. I mean, even, theatre, etc. But football has taken it to a new level for the World Cup, I think. I mean, that is just
I get annoyed when I see all these idiot celebrities in, the pit lane of the garages of Formula 1 teams. They don't even know that that's a car.
But
they're just there to show off.
But there's more and more of them wanting to get into these events. And, of course, people know they can afford it or they get freebies. And, as you say, the common man, woman...
Yeah, they do it to posture.
However,
the real fans can't go.
The common man and woman can go to the darts.
The darts! Oh,
yes.
I was going to do that segue. You beat me to it. Well done.
And watch tonight, Luke Littler, defending champion.
Is he playing tonight? Amazing.
He is playing tonight. It's the first night of the World Championships. The difference of the World Championship this year is there's many more players in it. So we've got 3 extra days. So there's 128 players in it. Starts tonight, and it gets you through your Christmas and New Year. It's fantastic.
Okay, without looking, who's he playing?
Labanowskis.
You did well. Look at that. Yeah, that's why you're the head, not a deputy.
We do a lot of darts on the Sun, and look, it's a fantastic event. People love it. People love it on TV. It's a great way, as I say, to get you through Christmas and New Year every day.
It's a drinking man's sport, is the darts.
Well, a drinking woman's sport as well.
I miss the good old days when they used to actually stand there for like a pint like that and a cigarette and then put it down and then go in for the shot.
They're on glasses of water nowadays, and there's no cigarettes on the stage or anything like that.
Can we go back to the olden days?
And also, last night, I'm flicking back to football.
You're cheating. Getting your notes out. You're like that person, that migrant in question time. You are.
Well, I was just because I was rather concentrating on how Newcastle did last night, and sadly we were a bit robbed by a late equaliser for Leverkusen last night, which means we're outside the top 8 in the Champions League table at the moment. But there were victories for Man City and Real Madrid, which is no mean achievement, winning at Real Madrid, even though they're in a little bit of trouble at the moment. Their manager, Xabi Alonso, formerly of Liverpool, is under pressure there. It was still a very good win for Man City. Very good win for Arsenal as well last night, 3-0 Bruges. So Arsenal are really well set. Arsenal and City, they're in good stead to qualify for the latter stages. There are Europa League games tonight already. Nottingham Forest have kicked off. They're in Utrecht, Europa League. Aston Villa in Basel, that's 8 o'clock. And Crystal Palace are playing in the Conference League, and they're playing against Shelbourne.
So there you go. If you're one of those wealthy people who's got the sports packages, fill your boots with all the action, the soccer action going on. And a special one for you, of course, is the Tyne-Wear Derby on Sunday.
Tyne-Wear Derby, that's big. I'm nervous already.
Oh, well, go and chill your boots. Sean, thank you ever so much. I'll see you after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back to the show. 2 hours down, 1 more to go. Hasn't it flown by? Well, you know what they say, it does when you're having fun. And I certainly am. I hope that you are sufficiently entertained and informed. If not, you can moan, right? You can say, Alex, you're rubbish tonight. Your stories are whack. I hate your guests. Or you can say, well, hey, we all love listening. Someone said, this chapel at the moment speaks a lot of sense. The problem is that was 31 minutes ago. I have a feeling it was about Andy Williams, though. And he does actually, even though, you know, we don't always see eye to eye politically speaking, I think by and large he is a man who does speak a lot of sense. He knows what pragmatism is, unlike many other people on the left side of the political spectrum, some might say. Let's do a few of your messages, because I've been rather poor at this on the show. The House of Lords should be abolished and replaced by an elected Senate, says Sean from Bridlington. Oh, more elections. Andy from Bridgend says, I'd love to see you in the House of Lords. No, thanks. I wouldn't mind doing the Commons. I wouldn't mind being on those green benches, but I kind of feel a bit too young for the House of Lords. I feel like you've got to sort of earn your keep. You've got to prove yourself. You've got to be a bit later in life. You've got to carry a world of lifelong expertise with you. Talking about someone, a world of lifelong expertise in the field of politics, who, by the way, is going to be a Lord. Let's welcome him aboard. Sir John Redwood. Hi, Sir John. How are you doing?
Hello, Alex. I'm in good form, though.
Congratulations.
Yes, rather surprised this week.
Oh, it's wonderful news. Now, if you become Lord Redwood, do you then not use the Sir? What's the protocol?
No, you would go over to being the peer, but that comes after I've been introduced to the House of Lords and have been through the necessary procedures. But I'm just John Redwood, and I'll always be John Redwood.
You are John. Do you have to pick a place that you're Lord of as well?
Well, you can do, and I'm going to find out how all those rules work, because I have never studied all that. So I'm going to go and talk to people who know, and they'll put me right and tell me when I can go along for my first attendance at the House of Lords, which I'm looking forward to.
Have you got a little idea of where you'd like to pick?
Well, if I pick anywhere, it would be Wokingham, because that's the area where I live and have lived for many years, and it's the area I represented in Parliament very happily for 37 years, so I feel very much part of Wokingham. And a lot of the common sense and politics I've picked up, apart from listening to shows like yours, is from the people of Wokingham.
Oh, because they're not woke.
No, a lot of them aren't woke. Not the ones that voted for me.
Anti-woke Wokingham. Brilliant. Well, good luck with that. I hope that it's because it's so all these sort of naming protocols, heraldry, the lot of it. It's just it's so English and so convoluted. And there's some sort of person who's about 70 years old and sits in an office somewhere and has studied this all their life and knows the answers, and they're the only person. But good luck. We're looking forward to introducing you soon enough as Lord Redwood. Much deserved, can I say? Now, talking about the sensible decision to make you a peer, what about the rest of the way this has played out? Because yet again, and look, all political parties, when they're in power, do this. They try and flood the Lords to make sure that the cards are stacked in their favour. And clearly, Sir Keir Starmer has done this. But what about the fact that Reform haven't been given the opportunity to have any peers? Do you think that's OK because they only happen to have 5 MPs? Or do you think that that is not particularly in line given their political prominence and the fact that they could potentially form the next government?
Well, I think that is a very difficult issue because it's traditionally been that it's reflected the strength of the parliamentary party in the Commons that's led to changes in the balance of the House of Lords in the past, which is obviously what Labour are following. But when you have a situation where the governing party's support has so collapsed so quickly and where there's another party that at least temporarily is looking good, then obviously people are going to raise this issue. But I think that's something to be sorted out between Mr Farage and Sir Keir Starmer.
Do you think we've got too many Lords as well? Because, we sort of see fresh rounds of new appointments to the Lords. But, of course, it's a lifelong privilege. And we've now got a pretty swollen second chamber. Do you think we need to revisit, perhaps reform the Lords?
Well, I haven't got there yet. So I don't think I'm going to surprise my new colleagues by, first of all, setting out reasons why a lot of them shouldn't be there. That's not...
I didn't know. I was a Brexit Party MEP and I really enjoyed telling everyone in the hemicycle they shouldn't be there.
that probably wouldn't get me off to a good start. But I do think there have been some changes in recent years which make a lot of sense. I think it's good that people can now retire from the House of Lords. I think it's good there's a rule that if you don't turn up, then you do lose it. And I think friends and colleagues have to tell peers, if they're no longer really putting their weight or making much contribution, that maybe they should think about using that voluntary route.
Let's talk now, move on to something being proposed by David Lammy. Plans being considered by David Lammy. Now, I don't want to sort of destabilise you. Don't want you to fall off your chair. Take a deep breath, because I'm going to say something that might shock you, John. I'm minded to agree with him. I'm minded to agree with something David Lammy has said. Oh, gosh, help me. But he's saying, and I actually hope that you disagree so we can discuss this through and I can hopefully see the light. But he wants to see childhood criminal records of certain people wiped. So people who have committed crimes such as nicking a bike, who are now in their 50s or 60s and 70s, and are finding that this is being disclosed to potential employers and is really ruining their prospects in later life. And I think he does make a distinction between people who have committed serious offences, dealing drugs or, murder, sexual offences. But do you think that it's probably okay that, you know, kids might have got in with a bad crowd, done something they regretted as a teenager? Why should it then go on to constantly be the albatross around their neck if they're sort of a reformed adult?
Well, I'm going to surprise you then, because yes, I do think it's a question worth asking. I think there will be quite a lively debate about how lenient or how tough the definitions are, because I don't think people want children and young people who've murdered or been extremely violent to be let off, and that there does have to be a longer lasting penalty for them. But I think, yes, you're absolutely right that we want young offenders who offended once in not such a serious crime to have a decent chance in life, and we don't want another excuse for somebody not to employ them.
I totally agree. Oh, there you go. Blimmin' heck, what's going on, Sir John? We're agreeing with David Lammy. Although one thing that I do think... Well,
plenty of other things to disagree with that he's done.
Yeah, one thing I do find hilarious... He's the man who wanted to
give away Chagos along with Keir Starmer, and that was one of the worst policies they've ever come up with, just at a time when we need to strengthen our defences with our leading ally, the United States of America, giving away a crucial base to an ally of China, and then making us pay for it.
Oh, they're crazy.
You know, we haven't got enough money, and they say, why don't we commit to billions over the years ahead to help a friend of China? No way, Mr. Lammy.
No way indeed. One thing I do find hilarious, I've said it a few times already on the show, but I'm going to share it with you in case you haven't heard it already, is to me... The absolute hypocrisy of saying that, you know, something someone did as a kid shouldn't be held against them 50 years later. Oh, like allegations. You said something in the playground, like Nigel Farage. I mean, come on. It's I do find that quite ironic. Now, let's talk about ECHR reform. So Keir Starmer is sort of, you know, joining a group of 27 signatories to the ECHR who are all saying we need to sort it out because it's getting in the way of us being able to manage our borders and deport people. We've heard this all before, haven't we? Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, wanted to get rid of the ECHR, replace it with the British Bill of Rights. The thing is, I don't think it can be reformed. To me, this just seems to be play acting, pretending that they're doing something serious that's going to have the desired effect. But it's not really going to go anywhere, is it? At the end of the day, the problem is the ECHR have supremacy over essentially our parliament. When you've got a judge in Strasbourg who can get on the blower and say, right, that flight to Rwanda isn't taken off, my friend, we've got a problem.
Well, of course, and this is too little too late. I'm surprised the Prime Minister settled for it and put it out there and pretended this would have any decent impact. And the first thing is that they won't get around to signing a formal declaration until May next year. This is urgent. These boats are arriving illegally, putting people at risk and then putting them into our hotels and big charges on our taxpayers. Now, we don't want to wait another 6 months. And then when you get to May, let's suppose that this group of countries sign this declaration. It doesn't mean the judges are suddenly going to change their minds. You need to change the text, as you're implying, or even better, you need to withdraw the United Kingdom from this text because it clearly doesn't work. It's against our interests. And by all means, make sure that British law upholds all the values and freedoms that we wish it to uphold. Why do these people have no belief in British democracy at all? we can impose our own morals and laws on the public and make sure their freedoms are properly protected. But very obviously, if we rely on the ECHR, we end up with open borders and a crisis that we see daily.
Yeah, and a crisis again, and we've covered it already a lot in the show today, but another story of a little girl who was abducted, raped, beaten, strangled, 15 years old she was, by a man in a migrant in a hotel. I mean, it's every day now. It's utterly appalling. And
it's just awful. I mean, poor parents and, of course, the children. I mean, it just shouldn't be happening. There's no need for it to be happening. And if only Sir Keir Starmer would wake up and understand that we could withdraw from this treaty altogether and have our own much firmer and better law, then we'd get on with it.
And do you know what really upsets me about this, John? Because I want to jump up and down and stand up for girls. I really believe in protecting girls more than anything. I think they have such a hard time today. I mean, I'm about to turn 42. I've been through the mill. But little girls today, the bombardment of stuff on social media, the hypersexualization of society, and now they're being told, oh, you've got to be nice to these men from different cultures. You know, I want to be able to have this conversation, that it is totally inappropriate when we're taking men from cultures that don't have the same attitudes towards women. We know the people traffickers are using videos of largely blonde-haired women in miniskirts who come out of a nightclub to say to their would-be clientele, here, pay some money, we'll take you to Britain because look at the candy shop waiting for you. It is sick, it is wrong, it is disgusting, and yet we are still struggling to have this conversation honestly and openly and address the facts as they are, because people would rather call us a racist for doing it. And it makes me so depressed about the state of society when the protection of little girls, because, you know, I just feel like someone would have to have total cognitive dissonance to argue the case that actually, oh, well, you know, we've got just as many sex offenders among our own population as they might do in Afghanistan. Doesn't make a difference where someone's from. I'm sorry, culturally, it's very clear that it does. And I cannot understand how in the 21st century we've got to the stage where the protection of little girls is so far down the ladder that they're used essentially as human shields by people who don't want to get accused of being called a racist. It's like, well, we'll have to wait to look at the statistics on this. The statistics are actual little girls whose lives are being ruined.
No, I agree. I love your passion. I feel equally strongly about it. Lots of decent men, we're dads or we have sisters or whatever. We feel very protective and we think this is an absolute disgrace, and there's been cover-ups and it's been going on for far too long. And the government has had to be dragged kicking and screaming to even have an inquiry. And it took opposition action, first of all, to get them to promise an inquiry. Then it took another intervention by the leader of the opposition before they actually said this week they now have an inquiry ready. But I noticed they want a Labour peer to chair it, and we thought that it should be an independent judge. And then they say they're going to take 3 years. Well, this needs to be taken at speed because these families are suffering, and there could be people out there still committing these awful offences.
We know, I'm pretty sure there are. Of course there are. And this is the other thing. I'm sorry, but most inquiries these days just don't seem to be worth the paper they're written on. They seem to cost millions of pounds to state the blimmin' obvious. And I get the impression the sort of let's press the big inquiry button is, again, let's just chuck some millions of pounds at something so I don't have to deal with it, so I don't have to answer difficult questions, so I don't have to make decisions and then get called all the names under the sun. To me, every time people pulls a let's have an inquiry lever, it's a delegation of responsibility. I'm sure that most politicians out there of all hues know full well that when you're sticking a load of young men from cultures where they don't even see a woman's face into a hotel where they've been lured over by traffickers saying, look at all these scantily clad young ladies, when they're men of a certain age without much to do, what do they think is going to happen? I don't think we need to sit down and wait for a load of statistics on this. It is obvious to me, and that is what drives me so insane about the society. It's like the puberty blockers thing.
I mean, but the answer to that one is to stop these people coming, which is why we've been talking about the legal framework and wanting much tougher border action, police action at our borders. But on the people already here who are forming these grooming gangs and have done so in the past, we do need to get to the bottom of it very quickly. And the inquiry could well help, but of course, in the end, it's individual police actions, following up individual cases and presenting the evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, because we know that very serious offences are being committed and not enough people are being prosecuted for them.
John, thank you ever so much. And once again, congratulations. I can't wait to welcome you back on the show as Lord Redwood, fingers crossed, of Wokingham. Let's do a quick call now because we've got Tarquin in London on the line. Hi, Tarquin.
Hello, my darling.
Hiya, how are you doing?
I'm very well. I just thought it's a shame that John's just slipped away into the night there, because I wanted to ask John, I was going to say, John, please, when you go into the Lords, please declare your support for reform. Be the first Lord of the Reform Party, and we could put him in the cabinet. He could be sort of like Home Secretary, couldn't he? That'd be good.
Guess what, Tarquin? Oh, cleverly, my producers kept a hold of him. There he is! Just by magic. It's like Easter Sunday, the resurrection of the Lord, the future Lord. Sir John Redwood, soon to be Lord Redwood, Tarquin says, ooh, when you're in the Lords, might you be tempted to back reform?
No, I won't. I'm sorry to disappoint your contributor, but no, I go in as a Conservative peer. I think Kemi is doing a great job now. I think her opposition to the budget was stellar. It was the best I've ever seen. I think the Conservatives are in the right position on the economy by saying that this government is spending and borrowing too much, and all their problems flow from spending too much on things that are either wasteful or are badly managed, and that if they don't grip that, then they're going to continue to fail this country. And I look forward to helping the Conservatives get that message
But
across.
I do get the impression, though, that you will be very balanced and pragmatic, because we were both just discussing that David Lammy might be onto something, you know? And so I think the most important thing when you are the sort of scrutineer of legislations is to sort of remove party politics from it and say, actually, that's good and I back it, actually, that's not and I won't.
Well, I think I've got a reputation for being pretty independent over the years.
Oh, that's true.
When I was a Conservative MP. But I don't believe doing down my own team. But if I think the future can be better, I will set out how and try and lead the conversation.
And that is why I think you make a very worthy peer. Thank you, and thank you for popping back there. Tarquin, there you go. I mean, he might not turn around and start wearing a turquoise-coloured rosette, but we trust him, don't we, to just make the right call based upon what he thinks is the right thing.
Indeed, and I think, Alex, because indeed he was one of us, he is indeed a loyal Brexiteer, then we can expect him to do the right thing, don't you think?
I think we can. I love it when I speak to you, Tarquin. You're so you're so energetic. You've put a spring in my tail and perked up a bit. But no, that's the thing. He was a bit of a Conservative rebel at times, wasn't he? And, you know, when you look at sort of the ideologies, his is the sort of, true blue Conservative ideology that is now maybe more true turquoise. So I don't think if Farage became Prime Minister, he would find too much obstruction coming from Sir John Redwood, unless, of course, Sir John disagreed with something, and that is what he is supposed to do. That would be his purview as a peer. Tarquin, thank you ever so much. Always lovely catching up with you. If you want to be like Tarquin and you want to have a chit-chatteroo with me, the number is 03444991000. It's your normal network rate. You can also use that number to send a WhatsApp. Leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 87222 is the number if you'd like to send a text like talk before you text. Let's do some messages now. What is so secret and so awful that Starmer and Reeves have to keep lying to us, says Mick in Wallington? Well, the budget, for one. Most of the things they decide for two. If Starmer wants to be rid of Mr. Farage, then maybe just make him Lord Farage. Just a thought. By the way, I hate Starmer with a passion. Only a psychopath would understand. Wah ha 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 ha, says Steve. Do you know, other people have said in times past, before he got his bum on the green benches, that actually if they had made him a Lord, it would have sort of squirreled him away somewhere and made him less effective. Although you could still stand to be an MP as a Lord, of course. Oh, thank you, Alan Terrence in Ramsey, who said they've just Googled the nativity immigrant picture. We're not sure if it reminds us of the ghost of Christmas present or the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Now, that's something we were talking about in the first hour, but sadly we can't show the photo because of copyright or some such. But it is a hilarious story of a Ghanaian migrant who's on the run from the police for assault, I think it is, and he's sort of gone across Italy and he winds up in this small town, and the mayor of the town, who knows that they should be looking out for this person, walks past the sort of life-size nativity display and notices one of the figures twitching. And the photo is absolutely golden. You've got like Mary, Joseph, babe in the cradle, bit of hay, some shepherds It's a random man looking like an extra from Michael Jackson's Thriller video. It's golden. Honestly, it really, I'm going to look at it during the advert break, actually, to cheer myself up, because it's just one of those gifts that keeps on giving. Leo says, I firmly believe that in this modern day and age, we shouldn't have an outdated House of Lords. The very word Lords places it in a bygone and class-ridden age. We need something similar to the American system. Hold your horses there, Leo. I quite like all the strange protocols and funny things and bits of heritage, because that's what makes us British. It's the glue that binds us together. But does it need reforming? I believe it does. Maybe because I want to be Lady... Oh, what would I be? Lady Gloucester? I don't know. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming in. We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back... If you're walking down the street and you swallow a fly, or some sort of gubbins happens to fly into an exposed orifice and you wish to remove it, you should be entitled to do so, right? You shouldn't have to be fined for that. Well, not if you are in Lincolnshire. That's coming up after this.
We need to have a conversation about class in this country and not about the colour of your skin.
It's the Harris playbook, right? They have Beyonce, we've got Lenny Henry.
Little Lily would rather have a lip smacker's lip gloss from aisle 3 of Target than a freaking whatever that ball roller was that Meghan was so proud of herself about.
We've become such a soft touch that our system is so easy to kind of work around and take advantage of.
Girl, you might be able to earn some money quickly, but no one's going to marry you.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, spare a thought for Roy Marsh, would you? Roy Marsh is 86 years old, lives in Skegness, and he was going for a nice perambulation the other day, but the wind had picked up a bit. It was smarting somewhat. And as a result, some rotten foliage managed to dislodge itself from an overhanging branch, and it just so happened that said bit of foliage in the gust rather unfortunately found its way into his mouth. I mean, it could happen to any of us, couldn't it? He said, I was sitting there, a gale blew a big reed into my mouth. But the drama, my friends, does not stop there because, well, like you would if you got a leaf in your mouth or a fly or whatever, really, what do? You spit it out. You don't just sit there and think, oh, that's nice, I'll chew on that. Maybe that'll be a bit of extra carbohydrate or fibre in my diet. Or, oh, I better not. I better wait till I get home to remove this imposter from my mouth hole. No, no, no. You would spit it out, wouldn't you? So naturally, that is what Roy Marsh did. But it just so happened, unfortunately, for Roy Marsh, the litter enforcement teams, the Jobsworths, were walking by. And two enforcement officers came up to them. And he was told by one of the officers that he had been spotted spitting on the floor. And he said, as most 86-year-olds might do, silly boy. But no, it didn't end there. No. Instead, he was issued with a fine of £250. 250 quid! You might be pleased to know that, like all spurious fines you get from your local council, there's always an offer to pay quickly and have it reduced, and such it was, to 150 quid, which he was still forced to pay. I mean, come on. Really? Let's speak now to Adrian Findlay, who is a councillor in Lincolnshire for Reform UK. Adrian, welcome to the programme. I mean, this is just crazy. This is crazy. I don't want people gobbing up on the street. It's a filthy habit. I really do not like it at all. But if an old man goes, there was a leaf in my mouth, or I don't even care if it was just his dentures playing him up. Just leave him be.
Right. Well, good evening for starters, and you've said it extremely well. How it panned out. Just for clarity, I've known Roy and Annie a long time. They are lovely people. They've got a good reputation. They're ex-business people from around the town, you know, that's brought in and helped the economy. Very respectable people. Not in a million years could I ever imagine Roy Marsh flemming on the floor purposely. So it is a genuine mistake what these guys have made. I'm not defending him, but Roy would not do that.
So he's not an Asbo granddad. He's a nice, upstanding member of society.
Yes.
Well, there
exactly.
you go. And I mean, let's do the right of reply now from the portfolio holder of operational services. And it's like when you get those sort of funny, interesting name badges on people, isn't it? Operational services. Councillor Martin Foster. He said the council closely monitors data on enforcement actions, including those relating to such things such as littering, fly tipping and dog-related offences. Our ultimate aim is to invoke a change in behaviour and stop people committing environmental crime so residents and visitors can enjoy a clean and safe environment. Environmental crime. So that's what he did, spitting out a leaf. How dare he? Now, my understanding is, Adrian, that they've also come and given you a bit of a dressing down.
Right, well, if you just bear with me, I'll get you to where we are now.
All right.
So, basically, on the 1st of November, the Roy and his daughter, Jane, was absolutely outraged because they didn't just approach him about the leaf. A few weeks later, they approached him and tried to accuse him of throwing a tissue on the floor, but it was actually scrunched up in his pocket. So this is like the second time.
But why are they after old Roy? They got a bone to pick with him or something.
Well, let me just bear with me. So what happened then was Jane, the daughter, put out a social media post. The outrage was phenomenal. And somebody tagged me in it, said, Adrian Findlay, can you do something? I like to think of myself as an active councillor. So I contacted the leader of East Lindsey District Council, who selected Kingdom as the enforcement officers to cover the area. Bear with me, gets better than that. I spoke to him, told him what had happened, told him about the behaviour from previous incidents that had happened have been reported to me as a councillor. Bearing in mind, I'm an elected member to speak on behalf of the people that put me in this position. His reply was, we get about 6 or 8 complaints a year. We fully investigate them along with Kingdom, the company that supplies these officers. when I read it, I was outraged the fact that he'd said that he didn't say, oh, we will look into it. He said they won't do it. So I put out, he did urge me not to do a social media post.
Oh, of course.
So that got me back up. Why would you want to urge? Now, you've just made a statement saying about you've got a statement from them, but let's be fair. If you came to me and said, you've took on a bad company here, I would defend that company because I've took them on. If I was that company with bad staff, I would defend them staff because that would make me look bad, having bad staff. So I get their defence, and I completely understand their defence because they're lucky covering their own backs. But from the social media I put out, I got 65 comments, every single one negative, with 22 different stories. To back that up, as a counsellor, I often get phone calls, text messages, emails regarding different scenarios of the bully boy tactics. And unfortunately, I have to say, it's bully boy tactics of picking on vulnerable people, mainly elderly, to give them a fine, who are then confronted by these officers and put in a position, Alex, where they're intimidated by them because they can come across as aggressive, they can come across as abrupt, and they do threaten people with the police. And it is outrageous, the reports that I've had, but mainly from the elderly.
But you know, because look, I think we can all agree that we would want to see yobbos who are doing horrible things, littering, spitting, whatever they may be doing.
They deserve
dog
to be
fouling.
fined.
We'd love to see them tackled. But what I want to know, because you said that they've committed to fully investigating everything, how do you fully investigate this? What do you have, like a Crime Watch dramatic reconstruction calling for witnesses? Did he or did he not have a leaf in his mouth? Forensics to look for, like, evidence of the projectile, you know, the forbidden fauna that happened to, like, come out of his face.
How they get to that, Alex, is simple. If you can remember the exact time and the exact date of the incident, they will check the body cam footage. But let me remind you that you've got two guys that are pushing and pushing you, whether you've done something wrong or not, to pay a hefty fine, and they expect you to remember the time and the date. If you haven't got a lot of money, or you've been shaken up by the threats and the behaviour, apparently, of what these people are doing to people, the last thing on your mind is going to be, oh, it was at 2:22 on an afternoon. You're going to be mortified.
Why would anyone remember? Why would they remember? Body cam footage for people who might have accidentally swallowed a fly.
Yeah, but it's not just that. There is so many incidents and so many stories of these guys. They hide behind shop corners, and cars and doorways.
Wait, what are these people? What are they doing? Like, hold on a minute.
No. I've had numerous people say it's entrapment. That's what I've been
they're
told.
literally creeping around with their body cams, like skulking about, ducking down behind cars, like binos, looking for someone who might be about to cough.
I know businesses in this town who point blank refuse to let them in because they chase people off the street into shops, arcades, restaurants, you name it. These guys chase them in there. And it's come to the point now that they are putting a bad reputation on the town. So people are now saying, you're not coming in here. I mean, one day the other day, and I am not making this up.
Do you know what? I would love to have one of these sort of what is it called here? Detectorists of environmental crime. I'd love to ask them what they get up to, because I'm all for people stopping fly tipping. I'm all for people stopping people allowing dogs to do whatever they want anywhere. That is one of the biggest things that annoys me.
Yeah, me too.
But this idea that you're like chasing Nana and Grandpa with your, I don't know, heat-seeking cameras, your night vision goggles, your body cam footage, Lord knows what else. It's just, it's a madness.
But to be fair, what they're saying that they monitor their staff and they've got video footage to show that that's the convenience side of it. The reality is now it's gone national with newspapers, radio and TV. Are these people saying, these people that hire these companies, that have these employees that are going around doing the ticket, are they saying that hundreds, if not thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people with various stories of unlawful issuing of tickets are wrong.
We have not
right.
got a representative of said contractor to come and answer that question, so I'm not going to attempt to do it on their behalf. But anyway, Adrian, thank you ever so much. Adrian Findlay, Lincolnshire County Councillor for Reform UK. Well, if you go down skeggy, make sure you keep your mouth firmly shut. OK, we're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, I'm joined by the Deputy Head of News of The Sun, Will Barker, to run us through tomorrow's headlines.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
All right, welcome back and welcome into the studio, the brilliant Will Barker, Deputy Head of News of The Sun.
Hello.
Now, tell me, what have we got to look forward to in tomorrow's paper?
So we are throwing our weight behind the hospitality industry. It's something that we've covered a lot since COVID. Our great British pubs have been really struggling. They've been getting hit left, right and centre, beer taxes, all sorts of things, and been really struggling to get back on their feet after COVID. And post the budget, it suddenly emerged. Rachel sort of given an indication that she was going to be quite kind to them, but then through sort of the budget tax rises and business rates and one thing and another, turns out they're getting done over again.
Yeah.
And they're not very happy. And one landlord, Andy Lennox, has set up a taxed out campaign now. There are more and more boozers are now joining in. There's about 150 now. They're going up all the time, and they're urging to the pubs to ban their local Labour MPs from going in and dredging up as much support as they can. And we're trying to back them and help them do that because
absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, it is shocking actually the impact on especially pubs, because when I hear people talk about restaurants and other things, I feel sorry for anybody who's trying to run a small business. Like my hairdresser, Stacey, got my roots done, and my hairdresser was saying that their business rates have gone up from £14,000 a year to £29,000 a year.
Yes.
That's a huge increase, and I feel sorry for anybody just trying to make their way and run a business. But when it comes to pubs in particular, once you lose a pub, you've lost something so important in the community.
Yeah.
You really have.
Yeah.
So good on you. Love that. So there you go. Labour MPs are all going to have to become teetotal.
Yes.
Maybe Strangers Bar in Parliament can do the same and ban the Labour MPs. That would be a good start. OK, great. Well, good on you. Let me know how that campaign progresses, and hopefully it'll increase from 150 pubs to...
Yes. Well, I think it will do. I think everybody will throw their weight behind it because, they're really crying out for help and anything they can do, really.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for Wetherspoons to do something. I'm slightly obsessed with Tim Martin at the moment because I've decided he should be made a peer. I love that guy. Right, now, talk about little attempted PR campaigns that are fast aborted because they don't seem to have worked.
Well, yeah, so once again, we've been covering this week, Hugh Edwards sort of slipped unknowingly, secretly back onto Facebook. He sort of had this very moody LinkedIn-style profile picture, and he suddenly came up alive again on social media, having sort of obviously kept a very low profile after we exposed him for his ne'er-doing-well. And he was then, there were lots of sort of his ex-BBC colleagues fawning all over him, lots of likes, lots of comments. And obviously people that were affected by him were very upset about this, that he was sort of affecting to sort of rear his head again. And we flagged this up, and last night this account, whether it was taken down, we don't know, or Hugh maybe sort of saw some sort of compassion and decided to take it down himself.
I'm wondering, reading between the lines, because Hugh ain't shy of a bob or two, is he? I mean, he's got a healthy salary from the BBC. I don't know if they ever had to repay the money that they were paying him when he was on suspension,
We understand, no, he should have done, but he hasn't as of yet, we understand.
No, still waiting for the cheque, are they?
Yeah.
But I wonder, and I don't know, but I wonder if this sort of, this fancy headshot and sticking up on social media was a sort of advice from some sort of, crisis strategic consultant.
Slip back in.
And it's like, the last time, Hugh, you shared a photo, it didn't work out well. Let's be fair, it wasn't of your face.
No.
I mean, do you know, it's funny, I know, I worked at BBC Wales a while myself, and I went to Cardiff Journalism School, and he was emeritus professor there, so I know lots of people who know Hugh. Indeed, I vaguely knew Hugh, and I think it was one of those people that, because people actually genuinely did very much like him and get along with him as a colleague, they were shocked. And look, I'm not condoning what he did, it was utterly reprehensible, and however nice someone is, you can't go, well, they're nice to me, that's okay that they were paying this kid a load of money for his drugs and all the rest of it. No, it's not okay. I do know a lot of people connected with him through my previous lives, and it did shock a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly did. Something that shocked me, actually, is the fact that for the first time, Number 10 have decided they don't want to give away British overseas territory. Way! Happy Christmas.
Yeah. Maybe the Chagos Islands are going to go back onto them now. But, this is a result of the Telegraph spoken to this right-wing outspoken Argentinian leader who, like previous Argentinian leaders, has suddenly sort of popped up and said that he wants to get back the Falklands. There's a range of comments saying that, basically these islands are ours, even though obviously all the locals there wouldn't want that. And we've gone to Downing Street today, and they've very strongly shut it down, saying, there's no intention to hand back these islands.
Do you know, it's funny, out of all the things that you would expect the Labour Party to do, giving back Las Malvinas, or whatever they're called, I'd put pretty high on the list, because the EU bang on about it, because Spain bangs on about it, because they want a bit of Gibraltar back. And Milei, he's coming to Britain in spring, the first president since 1998, president of Argentina, to do that. And it's funny because he's not a natural bedfellow with our government, is he?
No, he's obviously very right-wing and ours is very left-wing, so,
Maybe he's coming to lend Rachel Reeves his magic, chainsaw, sort of cost-cutting chainsaw. It's like, oh, you go, need help with your budget, Rach? Bam, here you go. Where was it that he was sort of tooling around giving Elon Musk a golden one or something? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love him. Oh, the fun of the fair when it comes to the right-wing politicians. Now, this is a joyful little story. Tell us about Farhan Hussein, who might be my new favourite person.
Yeah, well, so naan-breads are always a great source of stories. For over the years, we used to do pastry funnies, and for some reason, everybody loves naan-breads, and we could do so much with naan-breads.
Hold on.
You could
Before we go on to this, I want to know.
You could print things in. You can find long ones. You can find big ones. People eat loads of them.
Find Jesus in your naan bread.
Always find Jesus in your naan bread. All sorts of things, and they always used to sort of great sorts of stories. And so now one curry house in Cambridgeshire are getting rather ticked off with, like a lot of us, the potholes in their roads in the village, and so they've come up with a brainwave. They've created an 18-inch sort of super table naan and stuck it in the holes. And they videoed this, they put it on social media, it's become a viral hit, and it seems to be working. It's soaking up the mess and filling in the holes.
I love this story. I'm not sure what it says about the quality of their naan breads. You might hear that it survived a traffic pounding. That sounds like a chewy old number. One assumes they've actually stacked all the naans in the hole rather than just one naan over the top.
I think it's a big one. I mean, it's long, and it's sort of, chunky, a chunky one.
That ain't no gram flour in that naan bread if that thing's able to, withstand EV vehicles and the like. But I love this. I love it when people do these fun little things, and they really do deserve a mention. Here we go. It's the award-winning, no less, Shelford Spice.
Yes.
So there you go. If you're in Shelford in Cambridgeshire, or not, even if you live far away, go visit them.
No, definitely.
Oh, and maybe they could hand good old Rod Stewart a few naan breads or two. He's a fan of filling a pothole, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, bless him. Will, thank you ever so much. Thank you again for coming into the studio. Right, we're going to be taking a short break, but when we come back, it is time for your calls and your messages. It's the last roll of the dice if you want to speak to me. So make that you. 03444 99 1000 is the number to call. Normal network rate and all that. Last chance to ping me a WhatsApp message. Oh, actually, by the way, before I go to break, I feel like Jodie, my producer, was especially keen for me to read this message out. From Mary, she says, just to make you laugh, a colleague of mine was examining a patient's mouth at a bedside. One assumes she's a nurse. The family were watching. My colleague asked the patients to say, "Ah." At that moment, the patient coughed and a bit of phlegm flew straight into my colleague's mouth. And she didn't want to embarrass the patient or the family by making a fuss. So she just swallowed it. Oh! OK, well, we're all feeling slightly repulsed. Pour yourself a stiff drink and I'll see you on the other side.
We need to have a conversation about class in this country and not about the colour of your skin.
It's the Harris playbook, right? They have Beyonce, we've got Lenny Henry.
Little Lily would rather have a lip smacker's lip gloss from aisle 3 of Target than a freaking whatever that ball roller was that Megan was so proud of herself about.
We've become such a soft touch that our system is so easy to kind of work around and take advantage of.
Girl, you might be able to earn some money quickly, but no one's going to marry you.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube. YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, let's squeeze in some messages now. Someone's just said thank you for making my long drive home bearable. Now watching you on YouTube, I hope that means you are home when you're not doing this or going, because that will get you in big trouble. But he says Beetlejuice, 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 and I don't get that, but I'm assuming it's something to do with what I'm wearing. I've never seen Beetlejuice. I've never seen a lot of films, if I'm honest. Is that right, Jodes? Is that something to do with what I'm wearing? Beetlejuice? Yeah, she nods through the glass. She's like, you saddo, go and do your cryptic crosswords. Loving the prisoner's outfit. Why, thank you, Gary in Hertfordshire. I like to think I'm sort of like musical manuscript who's yet to have a score written on them. What's the outcome if we went against the ECHR, asks Ian from Walsall, and deported people who they said we couldn't? Would we be on the world's naughty step? I'll tell you what would happen. We'd probably be facing a fine from the EU of like €1 million a day, €1 million a day. Actually, we're not in it anymore, so no. That's what Hungary has to pay. I'm like, that's a brilliant bargain, isn't it? Let's say it's basically £875,000 a day, and they don't have to have all these randoms in their country. It's a great idea. But no, this is what happens when you break international law. Nothing. And actually, I always like to remind people that the ECHR said to Britain, you have to give prisoners the vote. And we went, no. And do you know what happened? Yeah, nothing. Prisoners don't have the vote. The idea that everyone in the Lords is some sort of expert is nonsense, says Stuart in East Sussex. We should stop appointing anyone until the numbers are down to, say, 250 to 300 by natural wastage. That's a dark way of saying I don't know what. Natural wastage. And then only appoint enough to maintain that number. There are far too many. There are far too many. Rather than get rid of hereditary peers, we should actually say, look, you haven't turned up here for about 16 years. Forget it. You're struck off the list. And then in future, make people serve a term. Another reform we could do. James says, I know the listeners of Talk are largely anti-European Union. I think that's probably true. But let's not forget the only reason the US is so anti-EU is because of all the big data firms. They want access to all our data with no restrictions. The EU is the only large body of governance slowing down the dominance of US AI, coming to run our lives. I have a feeling that Trump's beef with the EU runs a lot deeper than that. He was banging on about it in his first term as president. But certainly Elon Musk's beef with the EU is down to things like that. When it comes to what is going to run our lives, Brussels, American AI, I don't know, which is the worst of two evils. Really don't know, I haven't made up my mind on AI yet, whether it's a good... By and large, whenever I've interacted with it, it seems pretty hopeless. I feel like it's kind of overhyped, if I'm honest with you. Hi, Alex, there are 196 countries in the world and only 46 in the ECHR. The other 150 do not appear to be outcasts in the world, says Brian in Somerset. Well, indeed. The ECHR has to stop trumping EU law. Freudian slip. UK law. That's what we should replace it with. UK law. Well, the thing is, it's all being transposed into UK law anyway. And this is a very good point. The ECHR was set up to protect the people of Europe, not to protect people from all over the world. Maybe they should just use it for European people. I think that's a fair comment, actually. Maybe what we could do is what other countries have done, which is say you cannot challenge a deportation order. You don't get to keep appealing it 5,000 times and phone up some character in Strasbourg and say, will you help? Let's speak now to Mike, who's in Wiltshire. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the proposed doctors' strike. I personally don't think anybody should be forced to work more than a 40-hour week, and as such, they need more doctors to do the job. We're constantly throwing millions, if not billions, at the NHS. But you never hear of any savings in non-medical savings in the NHS.
Well, in theory, so interesting. Let's approach both of these separately. So, first of all, the 40 hours a week. I remember, right, because I've been in politics a long old time. I remember when the doctors' unions were campaigning against the EU's working time directive because it restricted them to just 40 hours a week. Yes. And what they were saying was if you're dealing with a complex case and also it's told, right, that's it, you've got to go, you've got to leave the ward, and you hand over that case to somebody else, you've got to verse them in it, and they don't know, and that's your patient, and you want to check up on them. And also doctors get paid a fair whack of money for overtime as well. So actually, I remember, and this must be going back about 20 years now, there was a huge outcry from doctors about the Working Time Directive. So that's that one. And then...
Oh, sorry, carry on.
No, you carry on, my love.
No, I was going to say the other thing point I wanted to make was I did a 5-year engineering apprenticeship when I left school. And I earned a lot less as a skilled man, and the reason for that was I was learning my trade. And the same really applies to junior doctors, I would have thought.
Now, talking as well about aren't we supposed to be scrapping some of the bureaucracy and cutting costs? Well, they did want to scrap NHS England, if you remember. But I think what they found, so this is what's hilarious about that, is they've figured out that to scrap it, they've got to pay the redundancies of all of these people they're now firing, which is probably going to cost more than keeping the blimmin' thing. And even though they're pushing ahead with scrapping it, you could be paid tens of thousands of pounds of redundancy money and then reapply to become an NHS boss 6 months later.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Isn't it? I mean, I personally don't think they should be allowed to strike anyway.
Do you know, I'm beginning to... I agree with you because, look, as you know, when it comes to preserving life, I think that has to trump everything else.
Absolutely.
It really does.
Agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty grim flu season, isn't it, if they do go on strike? I have a feeling. I don't know why. Something in my bones tells me. Something in my bones tells me that they're not going to go on strike. But let's see.
I mean, the NHS seems to be run very reactively rather than proactively, doesn't it?
Well, certainly when it comes to these unions, they're becoming more and more extreme, let's say. Mike, thank you, my darling, for your call. Let's see if we can squeeze in Paul, who's in Walsall in the West Mids. Hi, Paul.
Hello, yeah. Early this year, I figured out exactly how the sun's causing climate change.
Oh!
Right, it's taken ages, but it just clicked all of a sudden when my son was explaining particle physics. Okay, and I've written a poem about it, so it's really cheerful, and here we go.
Okay.
Global warming's happening